the Senate resolves to alter its hours of meeting on Tuesday, the 7th of November, 2023, and Wednesday, 8th November, 2023, as follows. For the morning sessions on Tuesday, to start at 9 a.m. up to 1 p.m., and for the afternoon sessions, to begin at 2:30 until the conclusion of the business listed in the order paper of that day, in order to investigate the proposed removal from office by way of impeachment of the Honorable Kawera Mwangaza, the Governor of Meru County. Mr. Speaker, sir, like you have noted or mentioned in your communication, this is a procedural motion to give effect to the desire of the House to prosecute the impeachment hearings, the proposed impeachment hearings of Governor Kawera Mwangaza by way of plenary as opposed to way of committee. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we are altering the calendar of the House so that on Tuesday we sit from 9 in the morning up to 1, and from 2:30 until the time we'll conclude the witness hearings. And on Wednesday, the same as well. 9 in the morning up to 1, and 2:30 up to the time we conclude the vote and we bring a closure to the matter. So I want to request all colleague senators to please readjust your diaries, be present in the House. You chose this route to listen to these charges and make sure that you participate in it. Particularly, Mr. Speaker, I'd wish to see the full participation and the presence of our colleague senators, those that for one reason or the other, like my good friend Senator Sifuna, held the view that a plenary trial is not as thorough as a committee. I'd wish them to experience it firsthand, Mr. Speaker, so that after that then we can have a conversation in future on which of the ways. I'm impressed and particularly happy, Mr. Speaker, that after this exercise, the senators of this session will have experienced trial of an impeachment trial by plenary and by committee, Mr. Speaker, at least up to the level of a report consideration. Of course, it will be impossible to say that everybody will get a chance to serve in a committee unless you impeach, I don't know, as many as 10 governors or something of the sort. But at least on this particular one, Mr. Speaker, every senator, each of us, the 67 of us in this House, will have an opportunity to listen in and follow through, seek clarifications, and so on and so forth. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I don't intend to be long because this is a simple procedural motion, which I expect that we can dispense of quickly and revert back to the order paper as was. Therefore, with those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I'd wish to request the leader of minority, Senator Justice Retired, Stewart Matsayo, to second this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, yes.
I do second.
You have now permission to second and not given you. Oh. Now proceed.
I thank you, Speaker, for the guidance. I do agree with what my brother Aaron has said. I thank you.
Senators, I propose the question that, notwithstanding the resolutions of the Senate made on 16 February 2023 and on 29 March 2023, pursuant to Standing Order 32, on the approval of the Senate calendar regular sessions for the second session 2023, and pursuant to Standing Order 34(4)B, the Senate resolves to alter its hours of meeting on Tuesday, 7th November 2023, and Wednesday, 8th November 2023 as follows. 1, morning sittings at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and afternoon sittings at 2:30 p.m. until conclusion of business, listed in the order paper of the day. In order to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of the Honorable Kawera Mwangaza, the Governor of Meru County. Senator Boni, Kalwale, Majority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do agree
with the leader of the majority that we should alter the hours of the House. Because, Mr. Speaker, this is a very important matter. And allow me, Mr. Speaker, to use this opportunity to tell the people of Meru that let there be no confusion. The committee of the whole House, plenary, is just as good as the committee of a special committee. I therefore want to appeal to them at a personal level that I have had enough calls from you. I have received enough texts from you good people of Meru. We are going to make sure that the governor gets justice.
Just a minute, Majority Whip. Senator Mohamed Faki, what is your point of order?
Is the Majority Whip in order to revisit a debate which was closed on Tuesday this week as to whether we go plenary or we go committee. A resolution of the House was made that we go plenary, and therefore there is no need to revisit the issue. People is making the matter sub judice because he's getting calls from Meru of an issue that is pending before the House.
Boni Karwale, you know, during the communication from the chair that day, actually he advised the members not to go into the substance of that motion before that day, before we get to Tuesday or the day appointed for that discussion.
Indeed, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't require any gainsaying. To do so, you would be preaching to the choir. And Mr. Speaker, as far as the point of order is concerned, I would urge the Senator of Mombasa to learn from people who are more experienced. Mr. Speaker, I therefore want to assure the people of Meru that we are up to the task. This is a serious matter, and we shall dispense justice.
Senator Mutida Tabitha. Senator Tabitha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do want to really confirm that all the 67 senators will have an opportunity to be able to give these issues the fair justice it deserves. As women, we've put our word and said that it's going to give us a clear indication if it's women issues, if it's leadership issues, incompetence issues, whatever comes across. And I want to emphasize what the majority leader has said. Kindly let us all be able to avail ourselves on Tuesday on time so that we can execute this issue for the benefit of the great people of Meru. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wakoli David.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika. Nashukuru kwa nafasi hii kwamba mhusika mkuu katika mchakato wa kubanduliwa nje ya kiti apewe nafasi hii kujieleza wazi, Wakenya wakisikiza madai ambayo viongozi wa wadi wako nayo, waje vile vile wajieleze, na stakabadhi zinazoweza kuthibitishwa na bunge la Senate. Alafu kama ni kunyolewa, Mheshimiwa Spika, watu waandae maji, waandae sabuni, na haki itendeke kwa yeyote ambaye atakuwa na makosa. Na iwapo hana makosa, Mheshimiwa Spika, atasamehewa. Lakini jinsi ninavyofahamu, Mheshimiwa Spika, uongozi lazima kila mtu awajibike, na tutakuwa tunampa nafasi yeye na bunge la kaunti wawajibike kutokana na hoja ambazo wataleta katika jumba la Senate, na yeye na wenzake wawe kielelezo kwa magavana wengine Kenya hii ambao huenda watajipata katika hali kama hii, ama MCAs katika kaunti mbalimbali ambao pia watakuwa na hoja kama hizi, wakizileta hapa wawe wamejiandaa kikamilifu ili tuweze kuamua kama jumba la Senate watu timamu, watu ambao wanalinda ugatuzi. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
I'm trying to read the mood of this house, but I'm confused by the number of requests coming on my screen. on this matter? Is that the mood of the House this afternoon? Yes? Okay. Let me test the mood. Honorable Senators, the mood is that members are saying we close this debate. Yes. And I want to put a question whether you agree with that position. So that we play in democracy in this House. Yes. So as many as of that similar opinion say aye. Aye. As those of the contrary opinion say nay, the ayes have it. So therefore I put the question. That notwithstanding the resolutions of the Senate made on 16 February 2023 and on the 20... No, it's okay. That notwithstanding the resolutions of the Senate made on 16 February 2023 and on 29 March 2023, pursuant to standing order that 2 on the approval of the Senate calendar, regular sessions for the approval of the Senate calendar, second session 2023, and pursuant to standing order that 4.4b, the Senate resolves to alter its hours of meeting on Tuesday, 7th November 2023, and Wednesday, 8th November 2023, as follows. Morning sittings at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and afternoon sittings at 2:30 p.m. Under members until conclusion of business listed in the order paper of the day. In order to investigate the proposed removal from office by impeachment of the Honorable Kawira Mwangaza, the Governor of the Meru County. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Senator Mulgo. This is I have a petition that I want to read, so have your seat kindly. Senator Romenen. Honorable Senators, I have a petition to the Senate concerning academic qualifications requiring to be a speaker of either a county assembly, the Senate, or the National Assembly. Honorable Senators, I hereby report that a petition has been submitted to the Senate by Honorable Simon Lenguia, who is a resident of Narok County and a member of Narok County Assembly, concerning academic qualifications required to be a speaker of either of the County Assembly, the Senate, or the National Assembly. As you are aware, under Article 119(1) of the Constitution, and I quote, every person has a right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority, including enacting, amending, or repealing any legislation. Honorable Senators, the salient issues raised in this petition are as follows. A, that the laws of a speaker of either County Assembly, the Senate, or the National Assembly require the holder to be equipped with knowledge and understanding of the provisions of the law to enable him or her to fairly, justly, and authoritatively make decisions of the House. Further, that any public office holder ought to be equipped with knowledge of the provisions of the law to effectively discharge their responsibilities. And B, that Article 106 of the Constitution of Kenya requires that a speaker for each House of Parliament should have similar qualifications as for elected members of Parliament, and further, Section 22B(2) of the Elections Act provides that one is qualified to be elected as a member of parliament if or she owns a degree from a university recognized in Kenya. C, that section 21(1) of the Elections Act also provides that the Speaker of a county assembly shall be elected by each county assembly from among persons who are qualified to be elected as members of a county assembly, but are not such members. And further, section 22(b)(2) of the Elections Act provides that for a person to be nominated as a candidate to become a member of county assembly, he or she should own a degree from a university recognized in Kenya. The two senators, find your way to your seats. This is a long petition. And D, Senator Chute, Senator Mulugo, you're out of order. Why are you moving when the chair is on his feet? You are roaming like... You are taking 2 years to learn these, the rules of the House. That's surprising. And D, that through the court case, County Assembly Forum, and 6 others versus Anthony General and 2 others, Senate of the Republic of Kenya Interested Party, Constitutional Petition E229, E225, E226, E249, and 14 of 2021, consolidated, 2021, KEHC 304, KLL, Constitutional and Human Rights. The court ruled that the members of County Assembly shall not be required to have degrees to contest for the seats. And E, that invalidation of the provision of section 22(b)(2) of the Elections Act for a requirement of a bachelor's degree for one to become a member of County Assembly also implicates that there is no degree requirement for one to be elected as a Speaker of County Assembly. And F, that currently most speakers of county assemblies do not have academic qualifications in law, which makes it difficult for them to interpret and apply the provisions of the law in county legislative matters. So the petitioners therefore pray that the Senate intervenes in this matter with a view to amend, number 1, sections 21(1) and 22(1)(b) of the Elections Act by adding academic qualifications for the speakers and their deputies of either the county assembly, the Senate, or the National Assembly to be a person who owns a bachelor's degree in laws from a recognized university. And 2, the standing orders of the county assembly, the Senate, and the National Assembly to be amended to provide that powers of members of the Speaker's panel during whose House proceedings be limited to facilitation of debate, and that matters that require ruling to be referred to the date the Speaker or his deputy shall be available to make a decision. So, Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Orders 237, I shall now allow comments or observations or clarifications in relation to this petition for a few minutes. Tausosi Godfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to comment on this petition by a resident of Narok County and a member of the County Assembly on the qualification of speakers of the County Assembly, the Senate, and also the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, this is a very important petition, and I wish to request that the committee that will handle this matter acts expeditiously and communicates to this House on the way forward, because I think that is a lacuna in law which we need to deal with. But, Mr. Speaker, how I wish they looked at the issue of qualification of the Speaker holistically, and not just the issue of education qualification. There are other aspects that we will require from a Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you know that the Speaker of the House like this one
or the National Assembly or County Assembly must be people of high integrity, people who will lead by example, and people who will protect the established traditions and norms of Parliament. And the Speaker is a key person in the House in terms of ensuring that the House, in its dealing with the people and in whatever form of work it is engaged in, ensures highest levels of integrity, believability, and of course, Mr. Speaker, ensures that the people have trust. Mr. Speaker, we have had speakers in this Parliament who have done exceptionally well, who have promoted the independence of Parliament. And I think we need to sustain that. So when the committee looks at this matter, it is important for them to look at the matter holistically. Mr. Speaker, we do not expect to have a speaker who is supposed to be the referee and is a player at the same time. We are getting into a situation where our speakers are even putting on party colors. Our speakers are even engaged in day-to-day politics, in funerals, in harambes, in churches, and I think this country is treading on a very dangerous ground if we allow our speakers to be involved in that kind of thing. We want our speakers to be people who cannot be questionable, people when they sit on that seat, they exercise independence, they exercise trust, they exercise integrity. And I think
there is a point of order from Senator Boni Karwari.
Mr. Speaker, our standing orders are very clear that if a member wants to discuss the conduct of another member, the member knows what to do. The Speaker of the Senate is a member of this House. The Speaker of the National Assembly is a member of the National Assembly. And therefore, if he's not comfortable with the way they put on their clothes, let him approach the House with a motion, and we are going to dispense with it. Is he in order to discuss the conduct of speakers of this Parliament without a substantive motion, Mr. Speaker?
Senator Boni Karwari, have your seat, Senator Boni. The Honorable Senator has not mentioned any individual during his presentation. He was just giving the qualities of Angundi Speaker, but he did not mention any speaker by name. And if we targeted me, you know, he could not be speaking now. So I think just conclude 1 minute. And Honorable Senators, if we give you an opportunity, 2 minutes are enough to make your comment on a petition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for saving me from my big brother, Boni. Mr. Speaker, I have not mentioned anyone's name, and I do not want to mention anyone's name. I am simply saying that whoever holds the position of the Speaker must rise above the politics of the day and must be seen to be independent and must be seen to be fair to all the members of the House. But when some actions are done...
But also, Senator, also, you know this petition is on qualifications, academic qualifications. So just comment whether it is okay, it is not, and so that we make progress.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I was saying that the committee must look at the matter holistically in terms of qualification and the conduct of the Speaker. To end this contribution, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that I think it's a very wrong thing for the speakers to be engaged in politics and even be party leaders of political parties. How will they exercise fairness? How will they exercise independency? Because they are party leaders of parties and they are sitting on the speaker's seat as a speaker of either National Assembly, Senate, or County Assembly. I think this is a very serious matter, regardless of which political position you are in, Mr. Speaker. This is a matter that if not handled, we are not going to have a house that is respected by Kenyans, a house that is going to pass laws which Kenyans are going to obey. Mr. Speaker, I support the petition.
Honorable Senators, you know, according to our standing orders, the comments on a petition should not take more than 30 minutes. From the members interested to make their comments here, if you allow free will discussion, then only maybe 2 or 3 will be able to give their comments. So strictly time 2 minutes to make the comment. Senator Mandago, Jackson. How many chairs do we have, Senator Mandago? Who are you listening to? Point of clarification first. I've given you an opportunity to give your comment. What is your point of clarification? What do you want to clarify?
Mr. Speaker, in my understanding of the standing orders, a motion for limitation of debate should come from the floor. It cannot be the place of the Speaker to limit the amount of time that members are going to contribute on any particular matter.
This is a special session today, and because of the business that we have, Senator Sifuna, actually we're at the bottom. Even I'm actually trying to help you so that you can make your comments. Senator Madago, are you leading for this, or like give Senator Chalgay? Senator Chalgay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, I want to support this petition through you, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, I want to say academic qualification for speakers is important for understanding and movement of the House. But, Mr. Speaker, you know, leadership comes from God. So, Speaker, we should avoid being prescriptive. And you remember, Mr. Speaker, in the last session, under Elections Act, we postponed academic qualification for the MCAs and members of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. My own thinking as a leader in this country, Mr. Speaker, because it's God-given, we should just be proficient in English and Kiswahili. You don't need to have a diploma or certificate because leadership is not equated to academic qualification, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, there is no need to disturb members of county assembly, MCAs, to go for degrees, to go for diplomas, Mr. Speaker. It doesn't make sense because when you are leading, you need wisdom. You need Solomonic wisdom, Mr. Speaker. And finally, in terms of academic qualification for the speakers, I think they need to be cognitive of English and Kiswahili. If you are proficient in both, Mr. Speaker, and I think outside academic qualification, I agree with my colleagues that we need issues of leadership and integrity, issues of competency in terms of ability and cognitiveness of what happens, Mr. Speaker. Let us not equate good leadership with academics, Mr. Speaker. We have seen professors failing nations and societies. But we have seen people who loved at class 3, like Mulu Mutisha, like Ezekiel Barangetuny, Mr. Speaker, or like Oletipis, who straddled the leadership of this country like Colossus, Mr. Speaker, because of their unique, even President Moi was a P1 teacher. He became a professor of politics and led this country for 24 years, Mr. Speaker. There is nowhere that says you must be qualified, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, can you protect me from the hecklers? Mr. Speaker, I want to say, in conclusion, that let us avoid. We saw people like Kwame Nkrumah, the people who are like Mr. Speaker.
There is a point of order from Senator Dulo.
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for Senator Cherargei to tell members that these honorable members are hecklers? Can he apologize to the House? Thank you.
Senator Cherargei, can you use parliamentary language kindly? Can you withdraw if you have insulted members?
Mr. Speaker, I am making serious points. I wish to apologize. I know it is because it's nearing weekend. Some of the people are rehearsing out to call over the weekend. I support Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wabua Enoch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will only say 2 things about this petition and then say a thing as a leader in this House. Mr. Speaker, I am in full support of this petition. Yes, academic qualifications are important, but also the dignity with which people carry themselves. is also important when it comes to public leadership. Mr. Speaker, the committee that will be given the responsibility to deal with this petition should seriously scrutinize the application of Chapter 6 of the Constitution in the appointment and election of speakers of county assemblies, and indeed actually speakers of war assemblies. So, Speaker, the other thing that I wanted to say as a leader in this House, that, Mr. Speaker, and I will never get tired of saying this thing, it is the responsibility of each and every one of us to uphold the dignity of this House by being guided by our own standing orders and rules of debate. Mr. Speaker, it is not right that a senator would just wake up from their seat and use derogatory language against their colleagues and be comfortable with it. Mr. Speaker, it is not right. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, when it comes the time that you're going to use to debate any motion that comes to the floor, let debate flow. Those who get an opportunity to debate will debate. Those who don't get the opportunity, they don't get the opportunity. Let's just debate flow so that, Mr. Speaker, we are able to extract some value from these debates. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. But I want to remind you that this is not a motion. This is just a petition. And I'm giving members an opportunity to give a comment, 1 minute or two for a comment, and checking on the list that I have. Because also as the chair, I shouldn't be embarrassing all issues that are here. So this is not a motion, number one. This is a petition, and I'm just allowing comments. Senator Tobiko, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I see this to be a very important petition. Mr. Speaker, it raises very pertinent questions, Mr. Speaker, on the qualifications of all the speakers in the country, both in the national assemblies, the national parliament, and also in the county assemblies, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I believe we should raise the threshold on people who are going to lead these honorable houses, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do disagree with anybody who says academic qualifications are not important for the speakers, because they are, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is very important that the leadership of these honorable houses across the country have the necessary academic qualifications, have the necessary capacity, Mr. Speaker, and have the integrity that goes with the office, Mr. Speaker, and that these are people who have no questionable character, Mr. Speaker. And so I will go beyond academic qualifications, that they should also be people of integrity to meet Chapter 6, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and I'm particularly concerned with those who are speakers of the county assemblies, because I see at the national level we are doing well, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, some of the people who have been appointed to be speakers in some of the county assemblies across the country, Mr. Speaker, really, the situation is wanting, Mr. Speaker. I had a speaker from one of the county assemblies
Your time is up. Senator Sifuna Edwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I happen to know the gentleman who sponsored this petition, Simon Lenguya, is nominated by ODM to the Assembly of Narok. ODM is the largest political party in Eastern Central Africa, and I happen to be the Secretary General of the party. Mr. Speaker, allow me to say that I support the petition, that in fact, we are not arguing about whether people who have questionable education or no education at all cannot lead. But we are saying what education does is to give you or grant you the tools to be able to effectively lead. I am a strong supporter of some basic minimum level of threshold of education, not just in leadership, in everything in life. It is a tool that is available for us, and especially because a few years back when Kibaki was the president, he initiated this process of free primary education so that we really don't have an excuse as to why we cannot acquire basic education. And I know, even under the Constitution, basic education is a right. So, Mr. Speaker, people should be able to exercise and encourage people to acquire knowledge and to acquire qualifications as tools to enable them to, effectively discharge their duties. If you look at the range of decisions that have to come from the chair or any speaker in the county assemblies, here in the Senate, in the National Assembly, there are serious issues that need consideration. And sometimes I feel personally very lucky that I'm a lawyer. And in my experience in this house, when the lawyers are seated on that chair, I feel like I'm talking to people who understand what I'm saying, as opposed to others who might. I am speaking as a lawyer. If you are a charcoal seller, you'll also stand and tell us your experience in this house. Don't heckle. So, Mr. Speaker, I was saying that I feel like we are a bit lucky, those of us who have lawyers as speakers, because they are easily, they are easy to direct on matters of the law.
Senator William Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. You know, I don't want to comment on what Senator Sifuna said. You know, most of us in this house are not lawyers, but I just want to say it is important that we check the qualifications and the minimum qualifications that speakers have both at the county assemblies and National Assembly and Senate. Honorable Speaker, even as we put minimum qualifications, the committee also needs to evaluate the speakers of National Assembly since 1963 up to now, between those who are lawyers or who are lawyers and those who were not lawyers, because we've also had speakers in the past at National Assembly who were not lawyers. Honorable Speaker, I only see one challenge on the position of Deputy Speaker, because some counties might not elect or nominate an MCA who is a lawyer. So what happens? So it's also important to look at that. You are a Deputy Speaker and you're not a lawyer and you're doing very well. You remember in the last parliament, actually the 11th parliament, the late Governor Joyce Laposo was not a lawyer and she was a Deputy Speaker. She did very well. So basically we need to look at that. Otherwise we'll put ourselves in a problem, especially at the counties, because they might not be able to elect or nominate a lawyer. So maybe we just put minimum qualifications, degree, relevant field, but for National Assembly and Senate, basically for the last few years, we've seen that most of them have been lawyers. But the last speaker of this house, Lusaka, was not a lawyer. And he did well. Thank you.
Senator Boru Ondinga.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also want to add my voice to this petition. It is a very important petition, Mr. Speaker, and I believe that we need quality. We need quality in our debates. We need quality in our leadership. Because, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the Speaker, as a leader, must lead with knowledge. Therefore, I believe that speakers should be people with some qualification. But I don't believe in, making speakers from lawyers. Mr. Speaker, once you understand these standing orders, we had an MP called Martin Shikuku. Martin Shikuku was a very, very good debater in the House, and he could control the House. If he was a speaker, he would have been a very, very good speaker, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, what I think is important is to have qualifications for them, but those qualifications should not be restricted to being lawyers. That is my first take, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my second take is integrity. Once you are a speaker, please remove yourself from partisan politics. Mr. Speaker, there was a speaker here called Slade, Humphrey Slade. My father was fighting for independence, but Humphrey Slade came up to Bondo to visit him. He did not fear that that person was in the opposition, and he was elected by people who are supporting Her Majesty's government. So, Mr. Speaker, once you are a speaker of everybody. and you must not be seen to be partisan.
Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think as the chair of the devolution, I support this petition. Because what is happening now in our assemblies is actually a very unfortunate situation. We are not saying that they must be lawyers, but however, they must be able to comprehend and able to at least communicate and understand what other members are saying and able to at least know the standing orders and how to execute their duties properly. Honorable Speaker, you have seen, especially I have no problem with the National Assembly and the Senate, because both of them are lawyers, I know. They are going to school. We must have, this is a country that most of us have gone to school, that this is a country that has been held high in most parts of the other African countries. So we don't want to have people who have not gone to school to be at least the way my brother, the Mheshimiwa Senator for Nandi said. I think we need to have at least people who are able to read and write. We must have a minimum, bare minimum, for anybody to become a leader, especially because this is where the laws are made. This is where the people talk, we debate. This is house of debate. If people cannot even articulate what they're saying, then you don't need to have those kind of people there, in this house. So that's why you see most of the times the counties people are fighting, fist fighting, They solve their problems in fighting. So, and I think that's because of lack of communication. So I think I will support and I will say that the petitioner should be heard very well and supported. Thank you.
Senator Okech, Hedy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I totally support the petition, and I hope that we probably will make it better in our conversation and deliberations. Because, Mr. Speaker, in this House, the fundamental things that the Speaker does functionally, one, other than just being a facilitator and a moderator of what is happening in the House, is making sure that people adhere to standing orders that run all these houses. And, Mr. Speaker, if someone doesn't understand basic questions of standing orders, Mr. Speaker, I wonder how they'll be able to help the House operate. And, Mr. Speaker, I've also seen from my experience in this House that the Speaker has got so many decisions that the Speaker has to make, and in most cases, the Speaker is invited to actually write down his or her rulings. I'm wondering if we don't have somebody who is qualified with some basic minimum, some bare minimum educational qualifications, how then does such a person be able to actually articulate these issues? But, Mr. Speaker, I've also listened very carefully to the argument of my friend, Senator Sifuna. I think maybe what we should have cushioned us from is maybe getting speakers who are just randomly picked from some councils in the villages, but a bare minimum qualification does not only stop at lawyers. I think this country faces so many economic challenges that economists will be the best speakers, because the decisions we're making in this House most of the time, Mr. Speaker, economists can be able to help with high cost of living, resource allocation that is always happening in these houses. The laws are written, they are easy to read, they are there for us. But having serious economists have been a problem who can help guide the House sometimes on matters conversation.
Senator Mandako Jackson.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the petition by the Honorable Member of County Assembly of Narok, Mr. Speaker, I rise to support, but with amendments. First, to say that it's not only lawyers who are qualified. Honorable Speaker, we've seen even during the constitution-making process, there are a number of institutions and organizations that put themselves in the constitution, restricted some opportunities to themselves. Honorable Speaker, I think the minimum qualification for a speaker, in my view, Mr. Speaker, should be a degree. But for elected leaders, Honorable Speaker, I really don't have a problem with any leader being elected. But also, those who are going to assume position of responsibility, like the Speaker, should be the minimum qualification should be a degree. Honorable Speaker, should we have an opportunity to amend the Constitution following the ruling that was ruled in court, that even governors should not have any qualification? I think it is a serious upshoot on the rights of other Kenyans for senators, for governors, for MPs, for members of parliament, for MCAs to be elected without any qualification.
And demolition of Buxton Estate in Vita constituency of Mombasa County. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the committee, I spoke to the chairperson this afternoon. We want to take this opportunity to thank every person from the petitioners to the county government of Mombasa, to the developers and everybody involved in the Buxton project for their cooperation during the duration of the hearings of this particular petition. Mr. Speaker, just allow me to make brief remarks regarding what we have observed as a committee when it came to the Buxton project. Mr. Speaker, one of the most glaring observations we made is that there is an abuse of the term affordable housing when people are constructing units within this country, Mr. Speaker. Because even though this project at Buxton was titled an affordable housing project, it turned out that, in fact, for many of the residents of Buxton, these houses were not affordable. Mr. Speaker, the second thing we noticed, that the agreement between the developer and the county government did not take into account the purchasing power of the people who are living in Buxton who are to give up the land for this development. One of the most glaring omissions, Mr. Speaker, we noticed was the absence of a tenant purchase scheme in the sale agreements or the agreements between the county government and the developer. What that meant, Mr. Speaker, because many of the residents of Buxton thought that they were being relocated for a brief moment of time, and that once the construction of the development was over, they would return to units that have been assigned to them by the county government. They would continue paying rent in the manner in which they were paying until the point at which that rent was sufficient to offset the purchase price of those units. This has not happened. And you will see in the recommendations that the committee has made. And Mr. Speaker, in closing, just allow me to highlight some of the recommendations that have been made by the committee, because I think these are far-reaching, especially in the times that we live in when the term affordable housing is in vogue. We here in Nairobi alone, Mr. Speaker, we are redeveloping 13 of our old council estates. And we have sworn, as the members of the committee will bear me witness, that what happened in Buxton will never happen in any other estate. And especially because I am the Senator of Nairobi. The developments that are happening now in Nairobi, I would not want what has happened in Buxton to happen in Nairobi. These are some of the recommendations, Mr. Speaker, and I'll run through them very fast because I know I only have limited time. Number one, Mr. Speaker, the committee has recommended that all public-private partnerships of housing agreements must be made public. They must be made public so that we address the question of non-disclosures of issues that affect members. Many of the residents of Buxton were getting shocked during the hearings before the committee that the agreements did not have a TPS or tenant purchase scheme clause. So we want all the public-private partnership agreements on housing to be made public, to be available to the members of this House and even the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, the second one is that public participation must be done on every single project, and it must involve effectively all the people who reside in the land that is going to be used for that development. I am happy that here in Nairobi I have seen an attempt by the county government to give residents of the estates that are affected an opportunity to speak to the proposed developments. Mr. Speaker, another key one is that the developer and the county government of Mombasa must fast-track allocation of the houses to those who completed payment, because there are people who completed payment for their units and they still don't have those units. Mr. Speaker, more importantly, to the petitioners and the people who missed out on the houses, we have made a recommendation here that, Mr. Speaker, the State Department of Housing and County Government of Mombasa must develop a mechanism to ensure the remaining 336 tenants or petitioners acquire units in Buxton through tenant purchase scheme under the National Housing Fund and submit a report to this committee within 60 days. Because this is the only way, Mr. Speaker, we will ensure that the people of Buxton get justice. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we have also made an allocation that the county government of Mombasa should allocate its share of 184 units to the former tenants or petitioners immediately. Mr. Speaker, lastly, that arising from finding of the tendering process for the redevelopment of other estates in Mombasa County, the county government of Mombasa needs to furnish this committee with a comprehensive report on the status of a tendering process within 14 days. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by thanking the Senate and the Speaker and the Clerk of the Senate for the support provided in the discharge of a mandate of this committee to ensure that we resolve the issues expeditiously. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I beg to lay.
Thank you. I want to give maybe 2 or 3 senators for brief comments. Senator Manzo Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to comment on this very, very important petition. Mr. Speaker, on the matter of housing in this country and the future of ensuring that there is enough housing for everybody. Mr. Speaker, there must be a program which the people take along with the government, and that it is applied equally and sufficiently to all people, Mr. Speaker, so that justice is seen to be done. Whatever happens in Nairobi should be seen to happen in Mombasa, should be seen to happen in Makueni, should be seen to happen in Kiambu and any other part of the country, Mr. Speaker, so that there are no different standards in different parts of the country as to the housing projects, and the most important, especially where people have been moved out of land, and that land is going to have government housing for the people, and the people are going to pay for it or have a system of making sure they don't lose their land. As it happened in Mombasa and it's happening in Kibra, Mr. Speaker, it should be the same people who were displaced from the land who should go on to get the first priority to benefit from this program, Mr. Speaker. The moment there is equity, then it will be fair to everybody, and priority must be given to the vanquished and those who have no property or place to stay at all. Mr. Speaker, I support and thank the members who went to Mombasa and made sure light has been seen for the benefit of the petitioners and the whole country. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mohamed Chute.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me say today, Honorable Speaker, I am in this committee of roads housing, and this petition came before us. And Mr. Speaker, this petition was brought by tenants, former tenants of Buxton Estate. When this tendering process was advertised, there was only one tenderer who tendered for that land. The land is 13 acres. And when the tenderer submitted his tender, because it was only one tenderer, it would have been a process which was non-responsive. At that point, that tender would have been nullified. They didn't. That was one grave mistake. Number two, Honorable Speaker, if you look at the cost of that Buxton land today, looking at it per square meter, Honorable Speaker, it is surprising to note that the price in Buxton today is 90,000 shillings per square meter. And the neighboring estate, which is being built now near the stadium, is going for less than 70,000 per square meter. Honorable Speaker, this issue of affordable housing is a scam. Why am I saying it's a scam, Honorable Speaker? If you look at the government giving land for free, number one, the same government is giving tax-free building materials. Same government is giving value-added taxes free. And also transferring that land is free of charge. And how, I don't know what kind of calculation they're making. After giving free government land, which is a public land, to an individual, and then that individual builds properties at not affordable price, but at an affordable price, commercial price. Mr. Speaker, if you go today Honorable Lomonen is my witness. He bought 104 square meter property in Great Wall. He bought 2 maisonettes, 2 apartments, at the cost of 3.5 million shillings. He has documents. I am his witness. And if you look at 104, you divide 3.5 million, divide by 104, you are getting that land at 34,000 shillings, 34,000 per square meter. So why should somebody tell me that after giving this land for free, this land, the price should go to 90,000 per square meter? I don't know why. Honorable Speaker, lastly, in that committee, my view was that the government has lost land to fraudsters in the name of developers. The Speaker, I will tell you today, after 10 years, there is no land that will be left for Kenyans to use because all the land that is supposed to be developed by the government has been taken over by fraudsters pretending to be developers. The Speaker, my view was in that committee, although I was a minority, had a minority view, was this matter should be subjected to Anti-Corruption Authority, EACC, because there is a fraud that was castigated between the developer and the county government of Mombasa. Mr. Speaker, if you go to South Sea today, Eastleigh today, if you want to do any development and you have the money, you can go to the landowner. And today, the mathematics are very simple. The landowner will be getting 30% of whatever is going to be developed on that land. And it's all everybody knows. I can show this government about 1,000 contracts that has been dealt with between a developer and the landowner. And it's very simple. You can build 100 units. If you build 100 units, 30 units will go to the landowner. But in Buxton case, Honorable Speaker, is 90, the developer gets 90% and the landowner gets 10%, simply because this land belongs to innocent Kenyans, because it's not an individual. That project, I agree. If the president can hear me, he should stop all developments purported as being affordable housing. There is nothing like affordable, Honorable Speaker. These are crooks, thieves, and calculated move of stealing from this country.
Senator Chute, I'm not comfortable with the words that you are using to describe those contractors.
Honorable Speaker, let me
Can you use better wording or
Honorable
Speaker, express yourself?
Yeah, Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. Honorable Speaker, why am I trying to say this? I am a businessman for the last 30 years. And I know when this deal is bad, I know. And this deal, why am I saying this deal is crooked? It's because why should it be 90 for the developer and 10 for the landowner? The landowner is a Kenyan. Is Kenyans. They are Kenyans. And Honorable Speaker, I want to support Honorable Senator for Nairobi by what he said is very important. Very, very important, Honorable Speaker. He said, we are not going to allow the same thing that has happened in Buxton to happen in any place, anywhere in this country. And the president should talk to us. We've seen something that has happened in Buxton, something unheard of. Mr. Speaker, you told me don't say theft, but something unheard of. So, Mr. Speaker, this petition, we've learned a lot from this petition. And I'm going to support Honorable Senator for Nairobi. We are ready to demonstrate, to stop this, what do I call it? The so-called developers into trying to siphon money from Kenyans. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. You know, Senator Chute, I don't need to be a lawyer to know the parliamentary language that is useful for this house. Senator Tabitha Karoche.
Sorry.
2 minutes for this because we must conclude these petitions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me this opportunity. And I stand to support the report of the Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation and Housing on petition to the Senate by Mr. John Suma and other residents of Buxton Estate regarding eviction from the demolition of Buxton Estate in Vita constituency of Mombasa County. Mr. Speaker, sir, I really want to say that I'm happy by Senator Sifuna what he said, that whatever has happened to the Buxton people will not happen anywhere else in this country. And for me, I've seen a lot of danger even when we are talking, and I'm happy that I'm in this house when this is happening. Because in our county, Nakuru County, I've seen some notices that I've sent to people who've been living in estates for over 40 years. They've been living in estates for over 40 years. And they've been told that they pay some arrears, that these arrears, the county government doesn't have the proper report because they inherited it from the municipal council now to the county government. So those areas are not really known whether they are really the proper ones. So they've been given 14 days. And the fear is, these are over 10,000 people living in Nakuru. The fear is, if they leave those houses, then they are given the private developers. These houses will be developed by the private developers, and at the end of it, they will not be able to.
Your time is up, Senator Tabitha. Senator Okech Eddie.
I empathize with the Deputy Minority Leader. I think that, Madam Speaker, in the same breath, I don't need law degree to know unparliamentary language in this House. It's also the same degree that you don't need a law degree to have empathy for leaders of the House sometimes when they ask for 2 minutes. But just a lighter comment, Madam Speaker.
Senator Eddie, you're using your time to make those comments.
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Extraneous to the point.
Madam Speaker, what is happening in this country is a creation of oligarchs through schemes that want to use the opportunity of public property to make people who do business with government become oligarchs by basically grabbing land in this country. Period. That is what is happening. That's what is happening with this affordable housing project in general, and that is what has happened in Buxton in particular. We need to call a spade and stop this creation of oligarchs. Madam Speaker, the schemes we are seeing in this country through the affordable housing project, what is happening is very simple. This country has developed a character where people who are in government trade in government. The people that you are seeing as developers are appendage of people who are in government. They are not far from the people who are in government. People just use the fact that they are in power to bring these affordable housing schemes, and then after bringing the affordable housing schemes, because they want to get the land for free, they give those land for free to developers, and in those development farms, they own pseudo shares through proxies. We must stop this, Madam Speaker.
Your time is up, Senator Eddie. Senator Gloria Oroba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I I want to say that it's very unfortunate that we are basing these very strong negative comments because of some unfortunate incidents that happened on a pilot project, because Buxton Housing was a pilot project. Madam Speaker, it is, I would say it would be a crime for someone to say just because they've seen one challenge here and there, and it's good that the House of Oversight, Senate, is highlighting some of the things that went wrong. What we need to do now, Madam Speaker, is to ensure that going forward, a good project is not going to be ruined by cartels. Because, Madam Speaker, affordable housing is a real, let me say, it has already started creating jobs for the youth. It's not even just about the housing, it's about all the jobs that are created on those projects. It's also about the fact that we are trying to solve the issue of unemployment and also win in terms of affordable housing. Madam Speaker, when you look at the Juakali sector, those people are not complaining because it is through affordable housing that finally there's a government that is recognizing their skill and giving them work in terms of mass production of things such as windows, hinges, and things like that. So, Madam Speaker, just because there are a few people who are trying to take advantage of a very good program, I think that should not be the reason why we shut it down. So affordable housing people should remember that it has, the reason why the Kenya Kwanza government started this is creation of jobs and to push our Juakali sector as we are dealing with the issue of not having affordable housing. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Oburu Oginga.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to inform Senator Gloria that very good things are normally quoted, are normally used to quote very dangerous things. So what matters is what is under there. Madam Speaker, the land is normally the most expensive part of any housing scheme. And Madam Speaker, if you are given land free, then the concept of affordable housing then comes in, and therefore the houses should be affordable. But if you look at the amount of money these people are reaping off from the Kenyans, the amount at which they are selling these houses, it shows that they are not cheap at all. These houses are not cheap at all. And Madam Speaker, I used to live in Buxton. Buxton is very prime land. It's very, very prime land in the center of Mombasa, and these people grabbed it. Actually, that is just grabbing of the land, acquiring that land free. You should buy the land and then sell them affordably, because the government maybe helps to moderate so that you buy it at a reasonable rate. But you cannot acquire land for free and then sell the properties or sell the houses at commercial prices, and you claim that you are doing an affordable housing scheme. Madam Speaker, I therefore think that this kind of scheme is good, because the words Honorable Oruba is using are very, very nice. It is a very nice scheme. It should not be killed. But then it should now be revised to include these people paying or giving.
Your time is up, Senator. Senator Manzo. Oh, Senator Abbas.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to support the report, the petition, that as reported by the committee, actually it's a very unfortunate situation that we are denying the poor Kenyans who lived in Pakistan for the last 50 years. They have been moved to the slums, and they have not been given any shares in those houses. They have not been given houses. No, the intention or the purpose of these low-cost houses is to improve the housings in this country. The people who are living actually in slums, you go to the homes, you replace them, and they remain not again the beneficiaries of those houses being built. These houses now have already been taken by middle class who can afford to buy those houses. The poor that own those houses since independence have no homes today. Two, the government has lost the 3 billion worth land, and to give that the developer was given free. The materials and everything they're using is tax-free. And we are saying, in this country, we want to collect money and taxing anything that's worth $500 to be taxed. See, this is a very unfortunate situation. Yesterday, we were demolishing so many houses in Mafoko. If you want to improve living, give people houses, and you are still demolishing other houses that have been existing, instead of demolishing those houses in Mafoko, they should have been sold to those people, at least at the low cost prices. And therefore, we need, I think this is actually a very unfortunate thing. And as Mheshimiwa Shuta said, this is a scam, actually. And this scam must be stopped in this country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Information?
Maybe I can. Yeah, no, to inform the speaker, the one who was the Senate, yeah. Yeah, I agree with just this thing of grabbing land. I've never grabbed any land, but we should be very careful in this house as the senators to ensure this thing of grab that people are called grab.
Tabitha, just hold on. What is your point of order, Senator Eddie?
But this house is a house of procedure, and that's why I'm up, Madam Speaker. She's not on point of order, she's on point of information. Can you just learn to follow the rules of the House? Madam Speaker, the senator for Nakuru has risen on a point of information. The rules of debate in this House, Madam Speaker, require that if you raise on a point of information, the Speaker who is on floor must agree to that point of information. And in any case, she is informing someone who's not even on the floor, Madam Speaker. Is this in order, Madam Speaker?
Senator Eddie, that objection is upheld. It should have proceeded in a different way. Senator Tabitha, you should have requested for point of information when the senator was on his feet, not after he has finalized his submissions. So, Senator Agnes Modama.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this petition. Madam Speaker, I want to agree with the rest of most of the senators who have said that even as we build this affordable housing, where there is a land, a government land or any other land that the government wants to use for affordable houses, and there are people who have built houses there already, they should be given the first chance and the first priority to buy that land instead of demolishing their houses for the same area to be built affordable houses. Because those are Kenyans, just like the Kenyans who are going to be built for the houses. So, Madam Speaker, I support.
Senator Cherarike.
Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to support this petition. I want to say from the onset, it looks like some of our members of this House have not read the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto. One of the cornerstones of President William Ruto administration is affordable housing. For the benefit and information of the House, the President just launched today handing over of Buxton Phase 1 in Mombasa a few moments ago. So, Speaker, I agree that the people who are petitioners should be given priority in allocation of Buxton Estate. So, Speaker, the aim of affordable housing is to free agricultural land. From where I come, Madam Speaker, it is very important that we now go to affordable housing so that we can free the land for agricultural purposes. And therefore, it is important, I want to advise my colleagues, even on this side, to read the manifesto of the President properly so that they understand the vision and the intention of affordable housing. I would permit the minority side to criticize because their business is just to criticize. And if they criticize, they get political ponga points and mileage. Let us not lose. Mr. Speaker, in my local language, they say, when you are chasing a gazelle and a squirrel appears, You don't stop chasing the gazelle because just the squirrel has appeared. Affordable housing is here to stay with us. The appropriation has been done. What we are is treating problems. I agree that since government has given developers public land, then, Madam Speaker, we should allow to be a bit cheaper, those houses. But affordable housing program is a vision of the government and the president, and we should all support, because one of the basics of human rights, you and me know, is that housing, shelter, and food is very critical. And there are many 4 million Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, Madam Speaker, that have not gotten a chance to have decent housing in this country. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
We are done with the comments that were to be given against the motion that was on the floor of the House. It was a petition, so we now go to next order, clerk.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader, please. Senator Tabitha.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate today, 2nd November 2022. Report of the Audit General on the financial statements of the Kabwewa County Hospital, County Government of Kisumu for the year ended, that is June 2022. And I lay the paper.
Chairman, Agriculture Committee, Senator Murango.
Madam Speaker, sir. Madam Speaker, sorry.
You cannot use Madam Speaker, sir, in the same sentence. You have
Yes. I'm sorry. It's confusion from Senator. Madam
the
Speaker.
Point of order, Senator Eddy.
Madam Speaker, I don't think that you should have allowed Senator Murango to get away with this. The idea of constantly referring to the Speaker of the House when any female speaker is on that chair as sir is becoming rampant, especially by this particular senator. And Madam Speaker, we are talking on this issue at a time when we have got a serious case that is coming of a governor who happens to be a woman governor that we're going to look at next week, Madam Speaker. So I think that Senator Murango should actually apologize to the Speaker. I rest my case, Madam Speaker.
Senator Murango, while I may not demand an apology, I will call you and caution you to be sensitive to the gender of the Speaker who is chairing the House at any one time and refer to the correct terminology.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'll apologize for that. Although, Madam Speaker, Senator Andy these days is the son to be a terrorist in this House, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, sir.
Senator Murango, do not use unparliamentary language. Please withdraw the use of the word terrorist against the Honorable Senator.
Withdrawn, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, 2nd November 2023. Report on the Agriculture and Food Authority Bill 2023, Senate Bills number 13 of 2023. And I beg to lay, Madam Speaker.
Next order. What's your point of order, Senator Madago?
Honorable Speaker, I have a problem with the gadgets in this House because it is letting us down. will you press the button, wait here? You will be coming to this Senate and you don't get the opportunity to contribute to the motions and the business of the House. I think the Senate should do something about it. I wanted to make comments on this Buxton report, but I pressed the button, but I don't know what is happening. I'm really disappointed because that thing is a very serious matter.
The clerk's desk, can you note the issues that we are having, technical issues that are appearing with the system on different desks, and make sure they are rectified to avoid cutting off senators who want to contribute to important motions in this House. Senator Madago, I believe the technical team should owe you an apology for that mishap. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
This is statement hour.
Shule za upili katika kaunti ya Bungoma. Katika kauli hiyo, kamati iangazie yafuatayo. 1. Iarifu Seneti kuhusu idadi ya wanafunzi wa shule za upili katika kaunti ya Bungoma waliopata mimba mwaka huu wa 2023 ikilinganishwa na mwaka uliopita wa 2022. 2. Ibaini sababu zinazopelekea kuongezeka kwa visa hivyo vya mimba za mapema, hususan katika shule ya upili ya Mtakatifu Tomasi Aquinas Chesikaki, ambapo wanafunzi takriban 54 wameathirika. Hii ikiwa ni 22% ya wanafunzi wote shuleni humo. Na 3, ieleze hatua ambazo serikali imechukua dhidi ya wahusika waliopachika mimba wanafunzi hao ili kukomesha hali hii ambayo imeathiri viwango vya masomo katika kaunti hiyo. Hoja ya pili, Mheshimiwa Spika. Nimesimama kwa mujibu wa kanuni ya kudumu 53(1) kuomba kauli kutoka kwa kamati ya kudumu ya barabara, uchukuzi na makao kuhusu hali ya ujenzi wa barabara pacha kutoka makutano ya Sangalo hadi Kandui katika kaunti ya Bungoma. Katika kauli hiyo, kamati iangazie yafuatayo. 1. Iwasilishe hati zote za zabuni kutoka serikali ya kaunti ya Bungoma zilizotumika katika ujenzi wa barabara hiyo, ikiorodhesha vifaa vyote na gharama zote pamoja na gharama za wafanyikazi waliohusika katika ujenzi wa barabara hiyo. 2. Iwasilishe nakala ya makubaliano kati ya serikali ya kitaifa na serikali ya kaunti ya Bungoma kuhusu mradi huo, ikielezea kwa kina kazi inayoendelea na iwapo muda uliokadiriwa kukamilika kwa mradi huo ulipita. Na 3, iarifu Seneti hali halisi ya kifedha ya mradi huo, ikielezea kiwango cha fedha kilicholipwa na serikali ya kitaifa kwa serikali ya kaunti ya Bungoma na sababu zinazopelekea kucheleweshwa kwa malipo ya fedha zilizosalia. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Thank you. Senator Eddie Okech.
Madam Speaker, even as I comment on this statement, I notice that it is addressed here to Mr. Speaker, sir. I think that next time, this statement should have Mr. stroke Mrs. or Miss Speaker, sir stroke Madam. Because, it's my statement, yes, but it's approved by the Speaker's office. Okay, and it's, that approval, mine was. So, Madam Speaker, I take this gender thing very seriously, even in how our things are addressed in this House. But, Madam Speaker, on that note, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 531 to seek.
Point of order, Senator Boni.
Yes. Madam Speaker, I rise on Standing Order number 105.
Can you take your seat, Senator Eddie, please?
The Senator of Migori is misleading the House. In this Senate, the Speaker is a man, and the Deputy Speaker is a man. For any address to that position to be accompanied by MS, MRS, or anything else that is feminine, it would actually, Madam Speaker, be insulting those two people. It is true, Madam Speaker, that from time to time in the chair we find members of the feminine orientation, but you are not speakers. You are members of the speakers panel. You see, in order to mislead the country, that we have got a female speaker in the Senate of Kenya.
Honorable Senator Boni, I am persuaded to uphold your position that the substantive holder of the Speaker's seat is a man. But I am also obliged to advise that when statements are being read, it is important for the senators who are presenting anything before the House to always note whether the person representing the Speaker is a man or a woman, and adjust the language accordingly so we don't have confusion or we don't send the wrong signal on the Speaker who is presiding over the House. So there is no very correct position, but sensitivity is called for, but the substantive holder of the seat is a man. Meaning addressing the statement to Mr. Speaker, sir, is quite in order.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, for educating the Senator for Kakamega on Madam Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order number 531 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the position of advisor in the public service of Kenya. Madam Speaker, in this statement, the committee should provide a comprehensive account of the number of individuals employed as advisors to the cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries in the national government executive, disclosing the number of advisors per ministry. Madam Speaker, in the same statement, the committee should also clarify whether the position of an advisor to a CS or a PS is formally recognized within the public service structure, stating their job group. Madam Speaker, in that statement, the committee should further determine whether the recruitment procedures for these advisors align with employment laws and determine whether this upholds the values and the principles articulated in our Constitution. And lastly, Madam Speaker, in the statement, the committee should detail the performance evaluation mechanism for these advisors, shedding light on their remuneration and benefit packages, and making comparisons
Honorable members, can you consult in lower tones, because the Honorable Senator should be heard with a bit of regard to what he's presenting before this House.
And I'm reading a very serious statement. And the last point, Madam Speaker, was in the statement, the committee should detail the performance evaluation mechanisms for these advisors, shedding light on their remuneration and benefit packages, and making comparison to other roles within the public service, and state whether it is commensurate with their responsibilities and qualifications. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator for Marsabit County, Senator Mohammed Chute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I have 4 very short statements. I'll start with the first one. This is in regards to an upgrade to bitumen standard of the Oda Bute Danaba Road in Wajir and Marsabit County. Madam Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing regarding the upgrade to bitumen standard in the Oda Bute Danaba Road in Wajir and Marsabit counties. In the statement, the committee should 1. Provide an update on the status of upgrade of the Oda Bute Danaba Road in Wajir and Marsabit counties to bitumen standard, stating reasons for the stalling of the project. 2, Madam Speaker, inform the Senate of how the project was tendered, providing details on the bids received, the contract awardee, and the bid amount, explaining any disparities between the contractual and actual commencement and completion dates of the project. And finally, Madam Speaker, outline any measures put in place to ensure the project is completed without further delay. Moving on to my second statement, Madam Speaker. This is on the status of construction of Korongo Road in Karen, Nairobi County. Madam Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing regarding the setup of construction in Korongo Road in Karen, Nairobi City County. Madam Speaker, in the statement, the committee should, 1, provide an update on the status of construction of Korongo Road in Karen, Nairobi City County, stating reasons for stalling of the project. Number 2, inform the Senate of the process used in tendering for the project, providing details of the bids received, the contractor who was awarded the bid, and the bid amount. And 3rd, explain any disparities between the contractual and actual commencement and completion dates of the project, outlining any measures put in place to ensure that the completion of the project without further delay. Moving to my 3rd statement, this is on the sale of affordable housing units under the Marsabit Housing Project in Marsabit County. Madam Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing on the sale by National Housing Corporation of affordable housing units under the Marsabit Housing Project in Marsabit County. Madam Speaker, in the statement, the committee should, 1, clarify whether the National Housing Corporation has sold all the housing units under the Marsabit Housing Project, disclosing the individuals or the entities that have purchased the said units. 2, provide a breakdown of the prices per unit type, stating the terms and conditions of purchase, payment schedule, and financing option, if any. And 3rd, elucidate on the steps involved in the sale process, the criteria used, and identify eligible buyers and the relevant documentation required. My final statement, Madam Speaker, is on the handing over of unfinished projects from the 2nd to the 3rd county government of Turkana County. Madam Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations regarding the handing over of unfinished projects from the 3rd to the 4th county government of Turkana. Madam Speaker, in the statement, the committee should, 1, provide comprehensive list of all unfinished projects that were handed over by the 2017-2022 administration of the county government of Turkana to the current administration, disclosing any findings of assessment on the feasibility of completing the project. And 2nd and final, outline measures put in place to ensure the completion of any outstanding projects without delay, stating the projected times for any such projects. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. The next statement is by the chairperson, Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing. I don't see Senator Karungo, so this will be deferred to the next session, next week on Tuesday. So we call upon the majority leader to present a statement pursuant to Standing Order 57-1 on the business of the Senate for the week commencing Tuesday, 7th November 2020.
Madam Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 57-1, I hereby present the business of the Senate for the week commencing Tuesday, 7th November 2023. Madam Speaker, as honorable senators are aware, the Meru County Assembly passed a motion on the proposed removal from office by impeachment of the governor for Meru County. Consequently, at the sitting of the Senate held on Tuesday, 31st October 2023, the Senate considered a motion pursuant to Section 33(3)(b) of the County Government Act and Standing Order 81(b)(I) of the Senate for the establishment of the Special Committee to the investigation and report on whether the particulars of the allegations against the governor of Meru County to have been substantiated. Honorable senators will recall that this motion was negatived, That being the case, the default position for the hearing on the impeachment charges against the governor of Meru County will be by the Senate sitting in plenary. As directed by the Honorable Speaker, in this communication issued this afternoon, the Senate will investigate the proposed removal from the office by impeachment of the governor of Meru County in plenary on Tuesday, 7th November and Wednesday, 8th November 2023. Listed in today's order paper at order number 9 is a procedural motion for alteration of the meeting time of the Senate for Tuesday, 7th and Wednesday, 8th November 2023, in order for the Senate to conclude on this matter within the timelines stipulated in the County Government Act and the Senate standing orders. Madam Speaker, in line with the communication issued by the Speaker this afternoon, on the Thursday, 9th November 2023, His Excellency the President is scheduled to address a joint sitting of the Houses of Parliament on the State of the Nation address. I urge all honorable senators to prioritize their presence during these two critical events that hold significant importance for our counties and the well-being of our nation. Madam Speaker, at its meeting held on Tuesday, 31st October 2023, the Senate Business Committee approved the next set of questions to be scheduled in the order paper for Wednesday, 8th November 2023. However, given that the Senate is scheduled to hold a hearing for the proposed removal from office by impeachment of the governor of Meru County on Tuesday, 7th and Wednesday, 8th November 2023, it has become necessary for the questions to be rescheduled to a later date. I thank you, and I hereby lay the statement on the table of the Senate.
Thank you, Honorable Senator. Senators, we have the statements that have been presented before the floor of this House. I will give members senators only 2 minutes each to comment on those statements, and then we move on to the next order. Senator Chiralike.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. Mine is just to comment on what nominated senator stated about the visit of King Charles III and Queen Camilla. So, Speaker, as you have heard, there have been conversation about kingpins in the country, but I'm happy the real king is in town. And you heard our beloved president saying so. Mine is two things. From where I come from, is the home of Koitalel Samoe in Nandi County. I've heard the king has apologized for atrocities and brutality that was meant through colonial time in this country. Mine is to appeal to the King Charles and the government of United Kingdom to do proper compensation and reparation to the Koitalel Samoe, Mau Mau, among other freedom fighters. We'll be very grateful, Madam Speaker, if we are compensated. And you know there is nothing that can repay the pain and anguish, but this compensation must come. Madam Speaker, finally, we also request the British government to assist us in constructing Koitalel Samoe University in Nandi County. If they can give up to 100 billion, we'll have a world-class Koitalel Samoe University, where we'll have a school of law dedicated to Jean Marie Serone Faculty of Law in that university, and also make sure they compensate. And we have brought the head of Koitalel Samoe and also give us money to improve on Koitalel Samoe Mausoleum. If they give us those things, we shall forgive them unconditionally. I support those statements, Madam Speaker.
Senator Oburu Oginga.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I just want to comment on the statement sought by Senator Okech on the issue of advisors. Madam Speaker, this issue of advisors is becoming notorious. It is not only in the national government, it is also with the county governments, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, advisors are employed simply because they don't require too much scrutiny, simply because they don't seek parliamentary approval. Some of them are even senior than those who seek parliamentary approval, go through very rigorous processes. Madam Speaker, it is also important to understand whether these advisors go through, whether their remunerations are also budgeted for. Do they pass through the budgeting process so that they are transparently employed and it is known how much they employ, and also their output, Madam Speaker. It is important also to know the output. What contribution are these people making to our country? Are they just for personal advisor, or they are actually making some serious inputs into the economy of this country, or helping us to improve administration and delivery of services to our people? It is very important to understand this, because there are some advisors, Madam Speaker, used to be in the civil service. There are people who are employed to advise. Some of them were attached to my office, but they were simply just looking after the funds which their people were giving. And they were earning a lot of money. They were earning more money than our own locally employed advisors, Madam Speaker. So we want to really understand what the foreign advisors are.
Your time is up, Senator. Senator Sigei, Wakili.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for also giving me the opportunity to comment on the statement. And I would in particular be commenting on the statement by Senator A.C. Ekinyuri. Madam Speaker, as the statement acknowledged, we have King Charles and Queen Camilla in town, and we have been following on the going-ons for the day they came into Kenya, the engagements that they have had. Part of it included a very great state dinner where a number of issues were discussed. As the president was acknowledging their presence, he indeed made comments about the real king being in town. Madam Speaker, this is coming at the time when Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of this House has issued or tabled a report on historical land injustices in the Kipsigis land community in Kericho and Bomet counties, as well as in Nandi County, where communities who were deprived of their land had their cases against the British government. Madam Speaker, I believe that in the course of the engagements by King Charles and the government of Kenya, issues including those ones arose, and an engagement in terms of the relationship between the two countries will ensure that part of the recommendations, which included a demand for compensation and reparation of the entitlement of the residents of the areas where they were displaced, to pave way for multinationals and serious tea growing zones, will be compensated. That recommendation, Madam Speaker, I believe, is also an issue that ought to and must feature in the engagements within the visit by the King within town. And also,
Senator, your time is up. Senator Oruoba Magono.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to add my voice on Senator Eddie's statement on advisors and whether we need to ask ourselves if we need them or we don't need them. Madam Speaker, in 2008, our former President Kibaki introduced the role of presidential advisors, and we had the likes of Raphael Tuju. And at that time, if there was a time at all to ask what advisors are doing, it was at the time when we had the advisor Tuju, because the roles were not clear. Madam Speaker, I believe the Kenya Kwanza government has actually stipulated and given job descriptions that are public. We know what advisors are doing. We know what the likes of David D are doing. So I think as a House of Oversight, it is not to decide what we need and what we don't need, but to decide whether these roles, which are being paid from the public coffers, are effective. Madam Speaker, thank you.
Senator Tabitha Keroche.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I also want to support Senator Essie's statement on the visit of King Charles and Queen Camilla. We really want to thank them because they chose Kenya as one of the African countries to visit, and they brought in investors, a lot of investors' confidence. And I know that is what we need most, because we need our businesses to start growing and thriving. And we're also happy to see His Excellency, wow. Also very happy to see His Excellency, the leader of the opposition, His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga, being State House, and I know now going forward, he will not be questioning those people who go there to State House to look for
What is your point of order, Senator Eddie?
To look for investment.
What's your point of order, Senator Eddie?
Madam Speaker, the Senator of Nakuru is talking about a name of a person and a leader, distinguished leader of this country. And distinguished leader, Madam Speaker, do I address Boni Aluale, who doesn't understand the rules of this House, or do I address you?
Chair,
Yes.
address the House through the
So
chair.
may you please protect me from Senator Boni?
Proceed on.
So,
Senator
Madam
Eddie.
Speaker, it is clear in this House that if you want to discuss any name of any individual, you must bring a substantive motion to discuss any individual. And the Senator of Nakuru is not only discussing the persona of, I'm on a point of order.
So on a
again, you know
point
the rules
of
of this
order,
House.
Senator Cheraligai, maintain
Are you
your
confused
peace.
today,
Maintain your peace until he finishes.
I'm on a
his
point of order. Let me
order.
finish. I'll finish, and I'll be heard in silence.
Finish, Senator Eddie. Can
So-
he be heard in silence, Senator Cheralike?
Madam Speaker, not only is the senator for Nakuru discussing an individual without a substantive motion in this House, but also trivializing the visit of a very serious guest in this country, the King. Can you talk about the agenda that can be able to advance this country instead of bringing this into a local politics, domestic politics, when you have got an opportunity to discuss substantive issues, unless the persona of Raila Odinga is the only way the majority side feels that they can get their legitimacy. If there's an issue of legitimacy by Raila Amolo Odinga visiting the State House, then you feel like you're legitimate as a government, then, Madam Speaker, we can bring that debate and discuss about the legitimacy of the government of the day. But you cannot start discussing Raila
Senator
in context of the visit.
Your point of order, Senator Eddy.
I've concluded, Madam Speaker.
Senator Eddy, I want to overrule your point of order on the basis that Senator Tabitha has not prejudicially mentioned the leader of opposition. So I will allow Senator Tabitha to continue with her. What is your Cherarike?
When you look under Standing Order number 98 on point of order, it says any senator may raise at a point of order at any time during the speech of another senator, stating the senator raises a point of order, and the senator shall be required to indicate the standing order upon which the point of order is based. Madam Speaker, is it in order for Senator Eddie Oketch to violate the standing order by not even indicating the standing order on which Senator Tabitha was violating? Madam Speaker, I thought through your chair you have always directed that before you stand, you must indicate which standing order are you relying on. Is it in order, Madam Speaker, to rule that Senator Eddie Oketch is out of order on the point of order he raised without giving us a substantive point of order he was standing on, Madam Speaker?
Senator Eddy, while your point of order may have valid concern and may raise valid concern, yet it's overtaken by events now that Senator Eddy has already completed his point of order. So we shall proceed on and allow Senator Tabitha unperturbed and undisrupted to continue with his submission, even on the aspect of the leader of opposition visiting the State House yesterday. You can proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know how Eddie is acting emotionally because he remembers when His Excellency visited Migori, he could not even go to welcome His Excellency the President. So now I think now he's free. His Excellency, the leader of the opposition, having visited the State House.
Eddy, I directed that Senator
It is now very clear. It's now very clear.
Senator Tabitha, can you pause? Senator Eddy, I directed that Senator Tabitha to proceed uninterrupted to finish his submission. I will now, Senator Eddy, you are getting out of order. Can Senator Tabitha proceed?
I'm really finishing. So I'm just saying the Queen and the King and the Queen brought in the investors' confidence that we need so much in this country, and we are happy to see the leader of the opposition visiting the State House, that he has barred all the leaders in the opposition, in the minority, not to be seen in the State House when they are going to look for.
Time is up, Senator Tabitha. We are done with that segment. Senator Eddy, you had Senator Boni Halwale.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to laud Senator Okonyori and Senator Eddie Oketch for their statements. The issue raised by Senator Oketch is very serious. In the county government, the wage bill has grown to 50.82 billion shillings. And in the national government, Madam Speaker, the wage bill has grown to 1.17 trillion shillings. It's just about time we told Kenyans who is being paid these billions in county governments and trillions in the national government. We need full disclosure, especially, Madam Speaker, in view of the findings in Siaya County and Kakamega County. You heard the concerns of the Senator of Siaya about advisors in their county. I have even a bigger problem in Kakamega. The governor of Kakamega has an advisor for political affairs, has an advisor for economic affairs, has an advisor for youth affairs, has an advisor for gender affairs, and through legislation, he's trying to sneak in an advisor on nuptial issues, Mr. Speaker. This is wasteful expenditure in counties where children drop out of school because of lack of uniform, because of lack of money to pay lunch, because of lack of money to pay a paltry 12,000 shillings for staying in secondary school. This must be clarified. Finally, Esther Kenyuri, the issue of the king. I would like to invite the king to come to Malinya, not for reparations, but to see the area from which the gold that created the 20-feet throne on which he sits in the House of Lords, where the gold came from. It came from Ikolomani, it came from Rostamani in Urambi, and it came from Accra in Ghana. We don't want any compensation, but we just like him to appreciate that we are the ones who have given him the golden seat. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Boni, you have given the gold free from Marinya. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Order number 8, the National Rating Bill, National Assembly Bills, number 55 of 2022, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to provide a comprehensive framework for the imposition of rates on land and buildings by county governments and powers of valuers, to provide for the establishment, powers and functions of the National Rating Tribunal and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 10, motion. Report of the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations on the application for conferment of city status to the municipality of Eldoret.
I will now call upon the mover of this motion to reply. Senator Abbas.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to reply the motion of adoption of the report of the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations on the application for conferment of city status to the municipality of Eldoret, which was laid on the table for the Senate on Wednesday, September 2023, and pursuant to Section 8(6) of the Urban Areas and Cities Act 2011. Honorable Speaker, I wish to start first by expressing my sincere appreciation to all the senators who rose to support this important motion. It was very clear that this motion was supported from both sides of the House, and I think I want to say my sincere, this was actually a statement to support, clear statement of determination to empower or devolve units to grow economically and develop into a sustainable and self-sufficient. As you are aware, Honorable Speaker, urbanization is one of the powerful and irreversible forces in the world. Urbanization and economic growth are positively linked because of the essential role it plays in a nation's development towards a stronger and more stable economy. Cities, towns, and other urban areas provide economies of scale, enhance agglomerations, attract talents and skilled labor, and serve as hubs for production and service centers. As you're aware, many other municipalities are waiting for this to be confirmed, and the next maybe they are requesting for conferment of cities, and I think it is the high time we need to have more cities in this country, the likes of Kakamega, from where our majority whip is coming from, and many others are actually in the waiting list. And as the Committee of Devolution, we will do our best to at least go the extra mile to see more municipalities come as cities. Honorable Speaker, the Committee of Devolution and Government Relations is keen on ensuring effective governance and management of cities, towns, and urban areas in the country for service delivery and economic transformation. It is actually noteworthy for the Eldoret is the second municipality that the committee has recommended to be conferred city status after Nakuru. As you are aware, Eldoret has been actually a municipality since 1953 and meets all the requirements and has an ample land for expansion. About 146 square, currently it's sitting on 146,000 square kilometers, and there's more land that's actually available for development. That there's new area that has been earmarked for the city to at least be built, a new city. Anybody who's wishing to invest, the likes of Honorable Segek, I think is ready to invest in Eldoret to take at least this opportunity at least time possible. The committee is actually very pleased and inspired by the positive contribution of the Honorable Senators, and they took keen note of all these issues that the House observed and advised with regards to the management of urban areas. The committee will endeavor to engage with the relevant authorities in the city and the municipality, so that at least there are few issues, like the roads are still narrow, they need to be expanded, the water issue, and then the issue of the farms. There are farms that will be covered as the city expands, but I think that is not a big deal, because if you see today in the city of London, one of the oldest cities in the world, it is surrounded by big farms. If you fly London, you will see cattle or around beautiful lawns where the animals being kept. There are horses there, there are sheep there. Therefore, I think Eldoret will not be exceptional to have also big farms around the city. And therefore, I think it is still, we can be able to accommodate those big farms as part of the beautification of the city. Honorable Speaker, may I also take this opportunity to commend my members, for the committee members, for devolution and for their commitment and duty which they made the consideration of the application for conferment of the city of status of Eldoret. I also wish to thank the Office of the Speaker and the Clerk for their support. Lastly, I wish to thank the stakeholders and the citizens of Eldoret municipality who appeared before the committee and presented their submissions regarding the conferment of the city and the municipality of the status. I think I want to say the governor of Eldoret and the committee that he has formed for the conferment of the municipality has done a wonderful job, and they have allowed us to see all over the city, the beautiful city it is, the city of champions, and therefore, so I want to say viva to the people of Eldoret for that today we are, that Eldoret will be conferred as a city status. Honorable Speaker, having said that, having looked around the House, I think there are not enough delegates for the purpose of division, and therefore I seek your guidance to defer the division of the motion. Thank you.
So the division is deferred under Standing Order 66.3 and will be done during the next session of Senate, that is next week on Tuesday. Next, Order Clerk. We are also going to rearrange the order paper to enable us conduct the business that is able to be conducted in view of the members who are in the Senate today. So we'll ask the clerk to call out order number 19.
Order number 19, the Prevention of Livestock and Produce Theft Bill, Senate Bills number 12 of 2023, second reading, resumption of debate.
Senator Cherarike, you had a balance of 29 minutes when this matter was adjourned, so you may proceed to debate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. From the onset, I want to thank the House. Yesterday, I proceeded midway. This age and time, we hope with the current security operators in place, should be having to ensure, Madam Speaker. And therefore, I want to urge all counties to ensure they have a proper place in pushing this agenda, Madam Speaker. And of course, the King is in town. That goes without notice, and I hope the King does not listen to what the former people who occupied these lands many years ago would listen to. Madam Speaker, and I want to emphasize what Deputy Majority Leader said, that State House is a public entity, and each and every Kenyan is allowed to visit State House and meet the President. And I hope ODM will suspend their disciplinary action against members of Parliament who have visited State House to discuss development, since their party leader has also visited State House. Madam Speaker, on the aspect of offenses, Madam Speaker, on the aspect of offenses, I have come up that we need to stop this menace. The biggest challenge, and I say there, in Baringo, in Elgeyo Marakwet, and northern and central Kenya, is because of lack of development, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we need, now that Kindiki is pushing for security, the necessary agencies like Ministry of Roads and Transport should ensure there are security roads. Madam Speaker, they should push to ensure there are security roads within those regions, Madam Speaker, so that when an insecurity occurs, the police can reach those areas. Because, Madam Speaker, when you visit those areas, you realize they have impassable roads, Madam Speaker. And I hope the Interior Ministry and Ministry of Roads should work together to ensure there are provision of security roads, Madam Speaker. But we are not saying they should only do security roads in those areas, but ensure Nandi gets roads, Madam Speaker, so that we can access, and part of Kenya, the entire of this part of the world, ensure that we do that, Madam Speaker. And I think if we can provide security roads in those areas, ensure they're accessible, it will allow ease of movement and even bring development. Schools should be there and many other aspects, Madam Speaker, so that we can ensure that we develop our country across. So schools should be developed, roads should be developed, hospitals should be there, so that those people feel they are part and parcel of Kenya. Madam Speaker, when I was growing up, when the people from Turkana used to come to Nairobi or other parts of the country, they used to say, I come, natoka Turkana, ndio nimefika Kenya. We want that thing to be done and be over to. So we must commit, the way we finish issues of FGM, the way we finish many other issues, Madam Speaker, we should be ready to tackle the issue of cattle rustling and banditry, Madam Speaker. And I saw the police in Baringo, and I sympathize. They cannot pursue those criminals because the terrain, they know those terrains more than we do because of lack of roads, Madam Speaker. And my advice to the people in charge of those police officers is that they should work towards this end, Madam Speaker, and avoid doing politics at the expense of doing their job. Madam Speaker, there is also issue of branding another person's livestock. We have banned that, and if you are found to have branded another person's livestock, we shall fine you 1 million or 14 years in prison. Because we are bringing, let us brand the animals, brand them. When you come and sell in Dagoretti Corner or other abattoirs, that abattoir must have proper records of the animals they are slaughtering. Madam Speaker, a person who steals livestock or produce or receives any livestock or produce knowing or having reason to believe it be stolen livestock or produce, we are bringing, commits an offense and shall be liable to not less than 20 years. Madam Speaker, on the aspect of using violence, especially where deaths have occurred, when you are stealing livestock, for the criminals, and they should be warned, is to a term of life imprisonment. So if you are found stealing animals or livestock forcefully using violence, you must be punished with that, with no option of fine, but to be life term of imprisonment. So all the bandits and cattle rustlers who have been taking advantage, Madam Speaker, they should be warned, they will go in for 15 years. Number 3, Madam Speaker, if you incite, procures, directs, instigates, or colludes with another person, and this is a warning to my colleague politicians, or any person who condones the issue of cattle rustling and banditry or livestock stealing, you will be ready if you participate in procuring, inciting, hires, and these are criminal enterprises that finance cattle rustling and cattle theft in this country. If you are even a financial seated in Nairobi, that you are sending criminals to steal animals in northern Kenya or North Rift, if we arrest you and get you, you must be put in without an option of fine, Madam Speaker, to not land less than 15 years. If we find you also trespassing with the intent of stealing cows or livestock, you will not be, if you find you just trespassing, you have not stolen, you have trespassing, you will not less than, not exceeding 7 years. And Madam Speaker, number 5, no person shall without lawful authority drive or convey or transport any livestock produced along public road unless that person is in possession. So you must have what we call removal permits. So I have seen many lorries who transport animals to Nairobi for slaughter. If you don't have removal permit, you don't have the details of where you bought those cows, Madam Speaker, you should be ready. You should be ready, that person, and proof, Madam Speaker, everything. You must have all the removal permit. There are details on how you remove, where did you buy, what is the description of the animals, where is it going, who are you selling to, where they purchased, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, that is the aspect that we want to introduce, Madam Speaker, is required to have in terms of subsection 1. The one who contravenes, Madam Speaker, must be ready for punishment, and if you alter or insist on tampering or brand or ear, for example, people want to steal animals and go and remove the branding, Madam Speaker, we are going to punish you for 3 years or a fine of 1 million. So if you steal animals and you go and change the branding and destroy, Madam Speaker, you should be ready to a fine of 1 million or 3 years. Madam Speaker, we are also going to be very keen, and members should listen to this. There will be no allowance of movement of animals between 6:30 p.m. up to 6 a.m. in the morning. So if we find you transporting animals beyond 6:30 along the road or before 6 a.m., then you shall be punishable by law. And that person will be punished either for 12 months or you will need to be paid 800,000 as a fine. Madam Speaker, finally, the 6th point, illegal possession of livestock. If we find you having livestock that you cannot explain, I know in where I come from, sometimes you find a cow which is training and you're keeping it. But if we find livestock that you do not have possession of in your place and you cannot explain, we shall ensure you go in for the next 15 years. And even illegal possession of produce. Madam Speaker, the 6th, and you know this issue of cattle rustling and banditry is a very complicated topic, and I hope my colleagues will bear with me. A person who kills any livestock with intent. This, you know, nowadays, Madam Speaker, the cattle rustlers and banditry who steal livestock have changed strategy. They go and slaughter, including donkeys. We have seen cases where donkeys or animals have been slaughtered. If we find you have slaughtered so that you bring carcass to Nairobi, Madam Speaker, you shall be liable on conviction to imprisonment for not less than 10 years. So be warned, if you are slaughtering donkey somewhere, you are slaughtering a chicken somewhere, you are slaughtering an animal somewhere, Madam Speaker, it will be an offense that will attract not less than 10 years. I know there are experts who normally slaughter donkey, Madam Speaker, and sell unknowingly. And I want to repeat what I said yesterday, Madam Speaker. We could be knowingly or unknowingly financing the cattle rustling. Because the meat that is on the table, either in canteen, cafeteria, or parliament, or across the country, you could knowingly or unknowingly be a case of stolen animal. Madam Speaker, what happens when you seizure the animals? The law says that when animals have, let's say Jeshu have gone on a military operation order in Kerio Valley or Tiati or Kapedo or Northern Kenya, Mandera, when they take these animals, they must release within 3 days or 72 hours to the owners so that, Madam Speaker, we ensure. That is what I wanted to insist. So I want to assure the public, when you lose your animals and police investigate and seizure, they should release upon proof of ownership within 72 hours. Madam Speaker, we need to punish the financiers. Upon application made by law enforcement to the court may make an order for investigation by the law enforcement into the dealings and assets. So what I am proposing, Madam Speaker, if we find you as a financier of livestock theft and cattle rustling and banditry, we have the courts can order investigation into you and have your assets being frozen and those assets being recovered, because we believe that has been used, and even freezing of your assets. So what we are doing is killing the head. We are not going for the small bandits who run around in Keriovala among other areas. We are going for the financiers. And when we get you as a financier, we must use asset recovery and freezing, Madam Speaker. I had said the seventh one is on public awareness, Madam Speaker. We shall ensure that we sensitize, and that is the work of counties and CEC, because CECs have a role of ensuring there is branding, appointment of inspectors, Madam Speaker. The fourth last point is that we are now giving option of ADR. We appreciate where Senator Peris Tobiko and others we come from. We value ADR. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that Section 34, the county executive shall collaborate with elders and gatekeepers of communities in promoting the use of community dispute resolution, including mediation in determination of any disputes regarding livestock theft. Because, Madam Speaker, livestock theft, from where Senator Peris Tobiko comes from, Madam Speaker, sometimes they allow ADR. You know, sometimes where you come from in the past, you could not get married without participating as a form of ritual or initiation into adulthood or in marriage, Madam Speaker. So we are proposing that let us have ADR. Even our constitution, Madam Speaker, allows that, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the general, if you offend this law, Madam Speaker, we are proposing less than 500 years to imprisonment for 5 years, or 5 years, not 500 years. No one will be sorry for that, to imprisonment for not exceeding 2 years or to both. Madam Speaker, the counties, after we pass the Cabinet Secretary, Madam Speaker, for the registration and identification of livestock, for removal or convenience of livestock, management of livestock centers, sensitization, and charges and fees to be paid by registrar under this Act. So we are giving power, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in finality, the purposes of Article 94(6) of the Constitution, what we are going to do, in conclusion, what we are going to do, Madam Speaker, is we are going to, I know there is existence of Stock and Produce Theft Act, Penal Code Prohibiting Livestock and Produce Act, Madam Speaker. I know there is Penal Code 278 of the Criminal Procedure Code. My intention in this bill, and with the support of the Senate and National Assembly, Madam Speaker, but the point I wanted to insist is that for these areas to stop, let us be deliberate in terms of development. Let us ensure equity and equitable. And I'm happy that the President said that, that this will be government that will wipe out the issue of cattle rustling across the country. My heart goes out to empathies and sympathies to many families who have lost their livestock and their loved ones because of this insecurity, Madam Speaker. And I want to urge that the Minister of Education should move in speed and establish education centers, rehabilitation centers, Madam Speaker. I went to West Pokot and I'm happy that the President during campaign, even when he was the Deputy President, he presided over an Arambe to bring back the Morans who used to participate in cattle rustling, Madam Speaker. We must build rehabilitation centers through the Ministry of Interior. Madam Speaker, I want to encourage Ministry of Interior also to put in place the National Police Reservists in terms of equitable basis. Because the argument we are hearing, this community says they are being, KPR are being armed, this one has been armed, Madam Speaker. So what we are just saying is that let us ensure that, and then number 3 is, my proposal is very simple. Why don't we get young people, these reform bandits, to be hired by National Police Service Commission as police officers? Then they are sent back to the terrain of Kapedo, Tiati, all those areas, North Rift, Northern Kenya, because they understand the terrain, Madam Speaker. You are taking somebody who grew up in Nairobi, went to Kikanjo, then you take them to Tiati or Kapedo to fight bandits, or even in Baringo or North Rift, Madam Speaker. Why don't we change and even reform them and then put them to fight and ensure that we win the war against that, Madam Speaker? That is the only way we can finish. And I told you, 60% of our homes depend on gross domestic product, Madam Speaker. So I want to urge the Ministry of Interior, working together with the Ministry of Education, and finally, Ministry of Roads and Transport, Madam Speaker. Let them ensure that there is security of roads in this country, Madam Speaker. And luckily enough, the Minister of Roads comes from Elgeyo Marakwet County, where we are having a problem. He should be busy fixing those roads in Elgeyo Marakwet called security roads, so that we don't have problems instead of belittling and demeaning us in funerals and other forums, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, for the branding to facilitate and recovery of livestock, we have said we will do that to ensure in place, Madam Speaker. But I want to continue emphasizing that we need good roads, Madam Speaker. Let us have a proper mechanism so that we can go into the future. Finally, Madam Speaker, before I allow Senator Peris Tobiko to second this bill, is to thank your office for overwhelming support, guidance through the process of drafting, through the process of supporting, Madam Speaker, through the process of ensuring that it is published within specific areas, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, with those very, very many remarks, I want to call upon the House to assist in expediting the bill so that in the next few months this bill can be in place, so that we put the last nail on the coffin on the issue of livestock theft, cattle rustling and banditry and other forms of criminals that continue to steal our livestock. Madam Speaker, with those I beg to move and request that Senator Peris Tobiko, my sister and the future governor of Kajiado, to second me. I thank you.
Senator Peris Tobiko.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank you, and let me begin by congratulating the mover, Senator Cherargei, because of taking this noble issue and bringing it to the floor of this House, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is a very important bill. To maybe 3/4 of this country, of livestock keepers, because I believe livestock keepers occupy maybe 3/4 of the nation, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the livestock and livestock produce industry is huge. It's very huge, Madam Speaker. It is an industry that cannot be ignored, Madam Speaker. It's an industry that is lucrative, Madam Speaker. It's an industry that employs a lot of Kenyans, Madam Speaker, and is the livelihood of many families, Madam Speaker, and families and communities, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have also seen a lot of problems in this field, Madam Speaker, and no wonder Senator Cherargei had to come up with this bill, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, as I second, let me just appreciate the fact that Senator Cherargei has taken his time to delve into a lot of the challenges that have bedeviled the livestock industry, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the northern areas of Kenya, Madam Speaker, including, Wajir, Mandera, Samburu, Laikipia, all those, Madam Speaker, communities have not lived well, Madam Speaker, because of livestock theft, and it has impoverished families, Madam Speaker. A lot of families have lost their hard-earned wealth, which they have accumulated over time, Madam Speaker, and can be lost in one night, Madam Speaker. It is so traumatizing, Madam Speaker. We have seen families that have become paupers. We have seen children who have gotten out of schools because their parents can no longer afford to keep them in schools or to pay their school fees, Madam Speaker. And it's not because their parents were not hard workers, Madam Speaker. The parents had worked hard. They had, stocked quite a bit of livestock. But in one night, Madam Speaker, that all becomes history. And you find a family by morning starting from nothing, from scratch, with nothing, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is difficult to even convince those Kenyans that they belong to this country, Madam Speaker, because the experiences are painful. Madam Speaker, I think a few days ago, maybe 2-3 days ago, I was looking at the news, and I saw children from Samburu County who are giving us their testimonies on how difficult it is for them to sit for the exams because of the insecurity, Madam Speaker. And I was imagining these kids, they have brains. They could be very clever. They could be tomorrow the speakers of this house, But the ground, the environment these children are living in is difficult, Madam Speaker. And I was imagining, are these kids, are they going to be sitting for the same exams that kids in Nairobi, Lavington, Karen, Muthaiga are going to do? It's the same exam. Same invigilators, same whatever, and same markings and ranking, Madam Speaker. It is sad, Madam Speaker, that we're in this country, it has become, we're still dealing with, ways of trying to address cattle rustling, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I do agree with the mover of the motion that in these areas, Madam Speaker, one of the lasting solutions, Madam Speaker, will be development of infrastructure. Madam Speaker, roads are required in all these areas. Schools are required, Madam Speaker, because when people get schooled, they will now see the world from a bigger perspective, Madam Speaker. They will see that they will be able to earn a living in other ways, Madam Speaker, becoming doctors, becoming professionals like yourself, becoming lawyers, and they will be able to earn a living through other means, Madam Speaker, so their life will not be rotating around cattle rustling. Madam Speaker, today, as we were in a committee meeting earlier in the morning, and I was telling my colleagues, there is pain that has not been addressed in this country. There is pain that has not been addressed because of the inequalities, because of historical injustices, areas in this country that have not been developed and remain undeveloped, Kenyans who just see development in other areas, they wonder whether they belong to the same country, Madam Speaker. I was telling my colleagues, I was actually talking to Professor Kamar, because I have visited Uasin Gishu and I love the place. It's so beautiful. I have had a chance of visiting very many areas of this country, Madam Speaker. And I was telling Professor Kamar, one of these good days I'm going to invite her to my home area, my place. It is so near Nairobi, but yet so far, because we have no infrastructure. Actually, from my home, we can see the lights from Nairobi. But reaching Nairobi is a nightmare. Yet it's so close. It's just like, maybe at the same distance like Thika. But because there are no roads, Madam Speaker, no wonder these Kenyans are left to do their own things, stealing from each other. Taking stealing goats from this family, taking to the immediate market, going through the bushes because roads are impassable. Madam Speaker, it's a sad situation. I was giving my colleagues an example and telling them, I have wondered whether maybe sometimes supporting government does not pay off. For some communities, and it pays off for others. Maybe those who have stayed in the opposition get more recognized and more rewarded, Madam Speaker. Because in Kajiado, for example, and let me just mention, we have supported every government that has come into place, Madam Speaker. From the Kenyatta government, the Moi government, the Kibaki government, the Uhuru Kenyatta government, and the current government, Madam Speaker. Yet, if I give you a very good example today of Mombasa Road is the one that divides Kajiado County and Machakos County. If we begin right from at the river here, there is, from at the river, now we can use Mombasa Road to be like the backbone. At the river next to KMC Kinanie, there is a tarmac road that goes into the Ukambani side. No road going to Kajiado. Go a little further, before you reach Machakos Junction, where you branch into Moa Hills, where Sonko has a home, there is a tarmac road towards Moa Hills in Ukambani, no road towards the Kajiado side. Reaching Machakos Junction, of course there is a road, a tarmac road that goes to Machakos headquarters and Machakos County, no road that goes into Masai Land. After that, just before you reach Konza Junction, there is a road that gets into Ukambani, no road into Masai Land. At Konza Junction, there is a tarmac road that goes into Ukambani, no road into Masai Land. I'm just following Mombasa Road. At Salama, there is a road that goes to Ukambani Wote and deep into the interior, no road into Masai Land. You go to Sultan Hamud, the same. Emali is now where we get a road going to Loitoktok. Where do we belong? Do we belong to this country? And I don't know whether maybe those in the Machakos, Makueni region are being rewarded for being in the opposition, Madam Speaker. I don't know. Maybe we are incapable of being in the opposition because we always believe, let's get into government because this is where we will get the services. But we are yet to get the services, Madam Speaker. And it is hurting us. No wonder our people are still believing livestock, theft and the bad things that go with it is the order of the day, Madam Speaker. It's so sad, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we see when there is a problem with coffee farming, government comes out, tea farming, government comes out and tries to get a solution. We also need livestock insurance, Madam Speaker, to face the harsh climatic conditions, to face the drought and the long famine periods, Madam Speaker. Kajiado has been going through a 3-year-long drought now, Madam Speaker. We are yet to get the rains, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, these Kenyans living in Turkana, living, in Baringo, living in all these, livestock keeping communities do need government to stand with them, Madam Speaker, and we need the necessary legislation that will be fair and that will also bring development into these communities, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if there was electricity in these areas, young men and girls can start businesses. They'll do welding, make doors, make gates, and saloons and all that, Madam Speaker. But how do they do that when there is no electricity, Madam Speaker? Madam Speaker, the bill has talked about the penalties, the jail terms that may work well, Madam Speaker. I would say that let us have deterrent laws, deterrent measures, to completely discourage cattle rustling, Madam Speaker, because it has brought poverty, untold suffering into communities, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have always wondered when I've seen, on the roads, police would stop with immediate effect a lorry, a canter that is carrying charcoal. But a whole lorry carrying livestock will not even be stopped, and the police will know where it's heading to. And the police, most of the times, are in cahoots with these people who are stealing livestock, Madam Speaker. Every time we have reported our goats have been stolen at Isinya, around Kajiado West area and Kaptiei, Madam Speaker, the police have never been able to apprehend, a single thief, Madam Speaker. But when it comes to, petty things, I'm not saying petty because charcoal burning, and I'm very passionate about the environment, and I hate to see any person carrying charcoal, for trading. But, Madam Speaker, I have always wondered why the police cannot see a lorry carrying sheep and goat and a lorry carrying cattle, but they will always be able to see a canter that is carrying charcoal, Madam Speaker. And so, Madam Speaker, I do agree with Senator Cherargei that the movement of livestock should be during the day, so that after 6:30 p.m. there is no movement of livestock, or before 6:30 in the morning there is no movement of livestock, so that people move livestock during the day, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there should be veterinary extension services, just like we have seen in the other agricultural areas, Madam Speaker, where government extends services to communities in order to be able to take care of their crops. We need to take care of the livestock in the same manner that we have provided support to those who do the alternative other farming, Madam Speaker. I do agree with Senator Cherargei that in our communities, alternative dispute resolution mechanisms are there, Madam Speaker, and they should be encouraged, Madam Speaker, so as to get a peaceful environment, an enabling environment for everybody to trade and to be able, to have their sources of livelihoods, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity, and let me once again congratulate Senator Cherargei. He really speaks for most Kenyans, Madam Speaker, and I believe the future is bright for Senator Cherargei. One day, Senator Cherargei may just become the president of this republic, because he has taken every issue seriously, not just the one that affects the people of Nandi, but across the country, Madam Speaker. He has been careful to listen to the challenges that affect other Kenyans. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support, and I second, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Senators, we will now proceed on with the contributions from other senators. But before that, I want to propose the question that the Prevention of Livestock and Produce Theft Bill, Senate Bills number 2023, be now read a second time. So I'll now invite senators to make contribution to this debate, and I'll call Senator Sigei Wakili to contribute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to speak to this very important bill. And I would like to appreciate the senator from Nandi, Senator Cherargei, for finding it important, and for that matter, very important, to bring such a bill in order to ensure that there is legislation like this that supports and enhances the prevention of livestock theft and related interest in terms of what the bill provides. And Madam Speaker, the Prevention of Livestock and Produce Theft Bill 2023, as was moved by Senator Cherargei, is a very crucial bill that for whatever it provides, it deals with so many areas in dealing with the issue of security, protection of the investments our farmers, our pastoralists, our brothers and sisters have invested in their livestock, and also ensuring that such other related benefits, including what is very key in terms of opening up areas like security roads and related interest, is to be made in order to make sure that we do protect our farmers and protect their investments. Madam Speaker, I will straight go to the provisions of the bill attempt to discuss where there are there are very many areas it provides. And in this case, when we look at the provisions of Clause 3 of the bill, it indeed provides for the objectives of the Act, which include, and this is very important, Madam Speaker, and I must applaud Senator Cherargei for coming up with this, the element of identification, tracking, and giving a special or a unique identifier to a owner of livestock. That is very key in terms of ensuring that the very many farmers, thousands of animals which are owned by our brothers and sisters, will be identified by a special identifier that will ensure that their security, if they are stolen, can always be easily traced. That is very, very important in ensuring that recovery of such livestock is key. The provisions of that particular clause, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 4, are very crucial to this particular bill. And Madam Speaker, the role that has been given under this particular clause to the national government in formulation of the policies and also creation of a mandate to acquire the equipment for purposes of this bill ensures that there is a clear demarcation of the role that the national government and the county government is expected to deal with. And the same clause, Madam Speaker, provides for the role of the county government. This includes registration of the brands and also processing the registration process of the brands and designs. This, in its way, Madam Speaker, will ensure that there is no conflict of the roles between the two levels of government, because the moment we already have policies in place, the county governments will be under an obligation and clearly provided for under this act or bill, to make sure that they ensure that the brands which have already been applied for registration by various farmers are registered and the designs are protected to the very specific person who applies for them, as long as they meet the requirements under the legislation and the county policies that will be put in place, because the same obligation is given to the CEC of the county government in the relevant department or in the relevant sector. Madam Speaker, this is well provided for under the provisions of Clause 3 of this particular bill. Part 2 of the bill, Madam Speaker, speaks into the issues of branding and branding of the livestock. The only area that I would have concern, and I would urge the Honorable Senator Cherargei to look into it, is the provisions of Clause 5, where there is provided, it's providing for the functions of the county executive committee member of the relevant ministry. Under 5A, the mandate of the CEC is to establish and maintain a county register of livestock brands. Besides the creation of the register, Madam Speaker, there is a missing link as to the extent of how that register will be developed, whether it is to do with the farmer or to do with the amount or the number of livestock a particular farmer will have, whether it is to do with the various, because we have listed under the Act that particular bit, but we've not identified as to whether or not we are going to be dealing with a county register for specific individuals or for the county. That, Madam Speaker, I would urge Senator Cherargei to relook at it so that it's clarified in terms of its provision. Number 2, Madam Speaker, under subclause D, establishment of the systems for tracking of stolen livestock. I think that still needs also to be provided for as to the extent of whether we are going to be dealing with a county tracking system or generally a tracking system for all, which will be applied for across all the counties in the country. I only have concern, Madam Speaker, with the provisions of Clause 6, that is to do with application for registration of a brand. Madam Speaker, Article 45 of the Constitution recognizes and acknowledges the entitlement of an individual and the protection of intellectual property. This design of brand has not been clearly defined by this bill, whether it will be protected as an intellectual property, whether it's going to be a trademark or it is going to be something. There is need for a clarification as to the extent of the designs and their registration. Because, Madam Speaker, there is legislation under the Trademarks Act and other relevant intellectual property rights in this country that provides for the procedure, provides for the requirement for registration of such rights under the Kenya Intellectual Property Institute. This particular legislation has not clearly defined as to whether or not these brands will qualify for whether the provision will qualify whether they are intellectual property or not. This I'll urge also the Honorable Senator Chergei to ensure that it's clearly defined so that it does not conflict with the national legislation on intellectual property. It similarly does not prescribe for the extent of the timelines within which one is done, because in this one, it gives 30 days. Whether this particular requirement will be the one that is under the national legislation or will be limited to what the county executive committee member shall define under the policy of the county government, or will also be required to be the one that is at the national legislation. Because in this case, it does not provide for a requirement for publication for a certain period of time, which the national legislation in most cases requires publication, so that if there is any other person who owns or has registered that brand, that particular person can raise an objection so that there is no conflict and there is no breach of the brands that have already registered, and there is no conflict from among the owners or prospective owners of designs and brands. This particular bit runs through from clause 6, 7, 8, and 9. And I believe in the fullness of time, Senator Chergei will look at those provisions to ensure that it is fully aligned to the laws which are already in place. The provisions of clause 10, Madam Speaker, provides for obligation to branding. Besides the registration of the brand itself, it gives a timeline within which the owner or an individual is required to brand his livestock. In this case, under 10.1, one is required for all the livestock that has attained the age of 6 months to be branded within the period of 6 months upon the passage of this legislation. Subclause B provides that if the animals or livestock are of 6 months upon or at the time of passage of this bill, the owner will be required within 3 months to ensure that registration is done. It has not, Madam Speaker, factored in the timeline within which the county executive member or the county legislation will have been developed and relevant policies are put in place. I believe that there will be need for time for the county governments to process and enact legislations and related policies, and therefore one might be seen to have been in breach of this law if they will not have branded, if they will not have registered within 6 months and 3 months, within 6 months of the passage of this bill. I also urge the mover of this bill, the sponsor of this bill, to relook at that so that there is a grace period provided within which, upon the passage of this legislation, the county governments are given time to pass the relevant county legislation and policies so that they align with the provisions of this bill. Under the provisions of Part 3, movement of livestock, this is clause 12 of the bill. I wish to implore upon the sponsor of the bill also to rethink on how we're going to deal with our brothers and sisters who deal with pastoralists. Because when you require the owner of livestock who intends to remove from one point, actually it's making reference to movement from the premises where they are ordinarily kept to other premises for the purpose of sale and slaughter. How do we deal with our brothers and sisters whose day-to-day life is dealing with movement in search of pasture and greener pasture for that matter? You need to relook at how we redefine the movement of livestock so that we don't limit the provisions of the Act to movement only for purposes of sale or slaughter, because it will not protect the pastoralist. Madam Speaker, the issue is very key. Where I come from, we have a livestock yard and a regular market day in Mulot, where we trade over thousands and thousands of livestock. We similarly have one in Chepalungu constituency, Chebunya, where Narok and Bomet traders do livestock trading. As to this bit of movement, we need to make sure that the law is clearly providing so that we do not hamper the businesses that are thriving across the counties, not only within Bomet and Narok, but across the country where farmers are involved in this particular business. Under the provisions of Part 4, the offenses, I want to applaud the Honorable Senator Cherargei for making sure that there is very specific provisions on punishment for those who are found guilty of the offense which have been laid. This is very elaborate, running through from clause 16 to 29 of the Act. This will act as a very great deterrent to those who've been involved in this particular act, because it does not only deprive our farmers of their investment, it creates animosity from among the communities, because as long as you have been deprived of your investment by those who are involved in theft, you will definitely not coexist, and this particular kind of punishment will act as a very great deterrent, and I believe in the fullness of time, we will be able to ensure that we bring down the animal or livestock theft, and instead of it, we create an environment where, as long as you know the law will catch up with you, you play along the law, and in the process, you act by creating the opportunity to your colleagues or your brothers and sisters across who are livestock keepers and are traders in the same livestock. Madam Speaker, as I close, the other element that I would like to ask Senator Cherargei to relook at is the requirement of the county governments to levy some fee for purposes of branding and also issuance of licenses. Article 209 of the Constitution provides for taxation and revenue raising, and this particular provision under this bill will enhance the county government's own source revenue. What I would like to have in this bill is to ensure that there is standardization of the amount of a fee that will be charged for two reasons. One, it will make sure that we do not deprive of our counties, because if there is non-uniformity, I can bet for sure that very many people will cross over to favorable counties for purposes of getting registration of their brands and designs and utilizing the same in their own counties if the fee and also the levy that is to be charged is not going to be standardized. There is therefore the need to ensure that there is a uniform structure for purposes of charges to avoid movement from one county to the other in seeking for registration at a very affordable or at a lower cost. And this way, we will ensure that those counties where farmers are dealing with livestock production will have an enhanced source of revenue to their counties. Madam Speaker, as I close, I want to applaud the Honorable Cherargei for this timely bill, which will ensure that our farmers are actually going to benefit under this particular regime, where among the top priority items that Kenya Kwanza had put in place is improvement and investment in agriculture, and this is one of those laws that will ensure that that particular pillar of the manifesto is achieved. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Gloria Oroba. Sorry, Senator Gloria, just take your seat. My apologies. It should be on the opposite side first. So let's have Senator Asige Kegehi Crystal.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to contribute to this very important bill that has been brought by Senator Cherargei. I, too, would like to congratulate him on the amazing work that he continues to do here in Senate. He is one of the senators here that I admire much because of his extensive knowledge on many topics and his passion to traverse all of the topics that he believes firmly in by way of, putting together legislation such as this that is very innovative and forward-thinking. So congratulations to the senator. Madam Speaker, it also, as I start my contribution, I just wanted to mention that it is anchored on Article 45 of the Constitution, and it continues with my train of thought in terms of the caliber of legislation that is coming out of this honorable House and in Parliament in general in this particular term. Madam Speaker, we continue to see, unfortunately, many wrangles, many issues, a lot of ingrained problems within the country because of livestock theft and cattle rustling and matters of the sort. And unfortunately, more than just cattle, or more than just livestock has been lost. Trust has been lost within communities. Livelihoods have been lost within families. There is, unfortunately, a lot of anger within many parts of the country because of this issue. And of course, we see, in the worst case, fatalities because of these issues of cattle rustling and livestock theft. So I see this bill as providing solutions to these problems, even though they may not completely eradicate the matter, and unfortunately, but I'm absolutely certain that they will lower the issues that we are seeing all over the news and all over the country, Madam Speaker. I want to also applaud the senator on the different provisions of punitive action that he has put together in his bill. And even though some may say that some of the action is quite excessive in terms of life imprisonment and 10 years more, the amount of money in terms of fines, Madam Speaker, I would like to also just remind anyone who may think in that line that there is more that has been lost, Madam Speaker, without these types of punitive action. Like I've said, people have died at the hands of people, bandits, and people stealing from one another for very little reason, if any at all, apart from just the issue of poverty, Madam Speaker, cartels we also hear of. And so these punitive actions, even though some may say it is excessive, I believe that things, for example, life imprisonment upon conviction of cattle theft or livestock theft is very much in order, Madam Speaker. I also want to congratulate, and I like this provision that has been put together regarding tracking of livestock. That's very important, as has been said already, and I won't go into repeating anything that has already been said, but it is absolutely, in my opinion, it is, in my opinion, an opportunity for young people to come up with very innovative technologies and digital types of solutions to how to brand these livestock, so that we are not putting any more strain on these livestock in terms of branding them in the traditional or old-fashioned sense, but young people also can take this as an opportunity for financial empowerment, to have their ideas put on the national stage. I even encourage the senator to, within his county and within his sphere of influence, to table this idea amongst young people, to say, let's come together. I have this bill that I've tabled in the House, and I want you as young people, because you're on the ground, you're innovative, you've got fresh ideas, and you want to see improvement and this country progress into more than it is. So let's try and put together some kind of competition or some kind of workshops so that we can find innovative ways to proceed with the branding of livestock. Madam Speaker, I also like the provision that has been put in the bill regarding the curfew, 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. movement of livestock. Madam Speaker, of course, we know that many good things happen in the dark, but unfortunately, many bad things also happen in the dark. And one of these things is the movement of livestock when they are being stolen by whichever group that is, doing these heinous acts. And I believe that that's the spirit that's the spirit of this particular provision. That's where it came from. We want to make sure that when livestock is being transported across the country for one reason or the other, that there is permissions that have been given, that there are certificates that are that have been also provided, and that there is proof that if you are found with a lorry full of sheep, for example, that you know where it's coming from. Whoever will stop you will have it will be empowered enough to be able to understand where they've come from, where they are going, who owns them, even just with the small innovation of the branding of these livestock, Madam Speaker. It'll be very easy, and there'll be little room for corruption if we go that route. And also the provision on the 72 hours of release of livestock if they have been taken into custody by police, I also believe is a very strong provision to be added to this bill. I think that unfortunately when matters do take long in any kind of court of law and when there are wrangles going on regarding who owns what and such matters, Madam Speaker, that unfortunately days, weeks, months can go by without somebody getting back their investments. And even as annoyed and as angered as I would be if somebody took my laptop, for example, which I need for my daily activities, and to be able to operate in every single way. If somebody kept my laptop for even one day, Madam Speaker, I would be dysfunctional. And so that the same spirit should be absolutely underscored for livestock as well. And I very much agree with that particular provision. Madam Speaker, I also want to just encourage that this is not an opportunity for animal cruelty to continue, unfortunately. I want to make sure that that is completely understood by those listening and by those who will be continuing to interact with this bill. This is not an opportunity for us to use any of the provisions to then say that we are able to, or we have been given permission to treat animals in any kind of cruel way. In fact, I believe that the Senator wants to make sure that property in terms of this livestock is protected and the livestock itself is also treated with dignity. Because, Madam Speaker, we know many communities who take very seriously the life and the spirit that is carried forth within our livestock. So animal cruelty is not an excuse for animal cruelty, is what I want to make sure that it's clear coming from that point. Madam Speaker, the next, excuse me. I also want to continue as I come to my conclusion to say that even though there are many towns and areas of our country, including, for example, Eldoret, which is now celebrating its city status, there are many parts of the country, unfortunately, that are still dealing with these kinds of issues. They're not even in the realm of thinking about such feats or achieving such feats, because unfortunately they are still being their minds are being clouded with issues of livestock theft and banditry and matters with that regard. And with this bill, I believe that these issues will at least be attempted to be addressed within the legal framework, so that people are not trying to do mob justice. People are not walking around still thinking that it's them, their law, their way or the highway, but there will be a piece of legislation that they can refer to, they can go and seek for legal advice on, and make sure that they're doing their thing, what their business is, and protecting their livestock in the right way. And Madam Speaker, there is a comment, Mr. Speaker, there is a comment that has been as well made, which I think is very important, that there are painful historical injustices that are yet to be unaddressed in this country. And it may please the House to know that I'd been given the honor yesterday of meeting the King of England, King Charles III, and I was able to even have a moment to speak with him personally. And I take that as a real honor as well, because before I spoke with him, he publicly made an address regarding the injustices that have been caused by his lineage and his commitment to turn that 180 degrees around. And I think, Madam Speaker, other injustices, unfortunately, don't have that kind of public declaration that has been made by the King of England here in Kenya just yesterday. And I wish that injustices that have led to death in terms of livestock theft would also be addressed somehow, some way, through legal action, through legislative frameworks, Mr. Speaker. But my point is that there is many things that have been unaddressed in terms of injustices in this country, and a lot of them have come from matters and disputes regarding land, regarding livestock, and the like. Mr. Speaker, I want to remind the House that livestock is property, just like land is property, and there are issues of land grabbing. These issues of livestock theft are just as important. And just because they may not take the main stage on our mainstream media all the time until, unfortunately, we see these fatal deaths being shared on social media, we must understand that they are as important as any land grabbing. Even here in Nairobi, livestock theft in any of our far-flung counties, are just as important as the issues that we are dealing with within the big cities. And I'm glad that this bill then gives those farmers and those livestock owners and those investors in the livestock industry a voice and an ear that has been given to them by the senator, because I believe with these very specific provisions, I believe that they have come from extensive consultations with people on the ground. It's not something that he has just come up with on his own in his office, but he has spoken to communities, he has listened to communities, and he has been able to draft this very impressive bill that has put together all of the opinions and the views that have come from the ground and are being addressed here in this bill. So I congratulate the senator from Nandi County for the livestock provisions that he has put in this bill, and I do support and ensure, and I want to assure him that when it comes to a vote, if I could, I would do the necessary and give him my vote. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak, Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Asige, for your contribution to this bill. I want to call upon Senator Mohammed Chute.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Let me take this opportunity to thank Senator Cherargei for this bill. Mr. Speaker, this bill is as if it was drafted by someone who comes from Marsabit, Samburu, and Turkana, and Northeastern. Mr. Speaker, the issue he has raised, the issues that are in this bill are very, very important, that when I went through it, it is like someone from Marsabit also was involved. Mr. Speaker, the issue of movement of livestock, everything that is in this bill on movement of livestock is very important for Kenyans, and specifically people who are prone to places like Marsabit, which occasionally being raided. Mr. Speaker, the movement of livestock, there are so many ways people move livestock. Some are by road, by rail, even by normally footing. You can move animal from Ethiopia into Kenya within a matter of 2 days. So, Speaker, the only issue I want to raise on this issue of movement of livestock is when we have drought in our area, not only Marsabit, even in Nandi, there is a problem you go through because livestock are not kept in shopping centers in places where you can easily sell. They are in villages. So what is happening when you ask for a movement permit, it gets very difficult to get the movement permit because of the centers. You cannot go to the centers because you are not selling your animals. So Speaker, again, during the drought, the last drought, our people in Marsabit brought their animals to Isiolo. And they faced a lot of problems, specifically on the permit, getting permits, and also payment of fees, taxes to the local government. So Speaker, I think in this bill I will ask Cherargei to look at these two issues. When a farmer, in Marsabit, our business, our everything is livestock. Some people in Nairobi can keep and do farming, businesses, but 95% of our people are livestock keepers. And occasionally, you've noticed, we get into a drought situation where a farmer loses everything he had. So in that situation, you will find a farmer or a livestock keeper getting into problems of getting even how to pay the cess collected by the local government. You cannot afford to pay because the animals you have are weak. You cannot milk them. You cannot sell them. You cannot even eat. So how do you expect somebody to be having money even for a permit and also at the same time money for livestock movement? When you move your, occasionally what is very clear is when you sell your animal, you move that animal to either Nairobi or a closer place, or even Meru. But that businessman who is doing this trade can afford to pay both fees and also permits. Mr. Speaker, I would urge our able senator to look into that line. Sir Speaker, there is this issue of marking and branding. In nomadic communities, what normally happens, every clan has their own marking. And these clans know if they see an animal, they will know this one is from my clan. That is a very good way of keeping the animals within that family. But the problem is now, when it leaves that vicinity, coming to a place like Samburu, then you will be having that kind of a problem that nobody will tell you this animal is from this clan because they don't know. They don't share the same signs. So the issue of marking and branding is very, very important, that we have to move to now the latest technology we have, which is putting chips under the skin of the animal. Mr. Speaker, I had an opportunity to about 2 months ago, to sit with an expert in livestock management. And he showed me different types of chips. And what Cherargei is talking about is very simple, plain and simple. Let us provide chips for our people in order to curb livestock theft. And the county government can do this, the national government can do this. Some are as cheap as 1,000 shillings. And we need to train our people and to tell them how this system, which is efficient and also affordable, can help our people. Mr. Speaker, we have markets, livestock market in Marsabit, in Karare, in Merile, and in Moyale. Mr. Speaker, in Samburu, we have got businessmen who are financing, buying bullets and guns for raiders who go and raid their neighbors. And these are top businessmen. They are very, very rich. They pay everything. And once the livestock arrives in the market, they pay very good money. And for this reason, I want to congratulate again Chair K. If today we have chips in our livestock, I'm telling you, you cannot raid again because it will be identified, recognized, and the arrest will be made. Mr. Speaker, these buying centers like Harare, Merile, and Moyale are places where you can get stolen livestock. But you see, if this livestock had been stolen from about 1,000 kilometers away, what do you expect? How do you expect the owners to come and check in these three markets? It's not very easy, it's very difficult. But with this new technology, you can be able to even it has a tracking system. You can track your animal. You don't need to put to all the animals, on all the animals. You can just put to a few. If you have 100 head of cattle, put on 10% only, which are 10. Out of these 10, this man doesn't know which one has a chip. So if he steals, he will steal maybe everything. But at some point, you will get somebody. Out of those 100, 10 will be found. And if you find the 10, then you will find all the thieves. Mr. Speaker, during the colonial era, I'm telling you, people, livestock keepers, pay taxes on each head of cattle or goat, even camel. Sometimes I don't even understand. With the technology we have these days, if a colonial government can identify all the animals that are in Marsabit County and ask for payment of taxes today, in this new era, with all the technologies, our government cannot tell you where these animals are. And this is something that we need to come up with this legislation. I think we can push for the local government and the national government hand in hand to support this program. Mr. Speaker, issue of livestock is a devolved function, completely devolved. I even sometimes wonder, why do we have ministry in Nairobi that caters for livestock and agriculture? And I know our president is keen on devolving these functions. And I'm honestly asking the president to speed up so that we will have the functions in the counties. And this legislative procedure, our able senator is trying to support, to be helping us in our counties. Mr. Speaker, there are abattoirs. What he has said about abattoir recording, I want to only add on that issue of abattoir. When the animals come in, the vehicles identification should be recorded so that you know this vehicle, you have the registration plate, the owner, so that you identify this vehicle ferried these animals from where. It is very, very important. And, Mr. Speaker, in Kenya today, we have got livestock traders, big people in Voi and Mwingi and even Kitui area. These are not normal herders. They are livestock traders. They trade to up to each person can have 10,000 to 20,000 head of cattle. And if what Chirerge is trying to propose is you identify animals, these people are not paying taxes, Speaker. They're not paying. And we have got traders to a tune of even 100 of them. If you look at today, 100 traders, businessmen, rearing cattle in Voi, each having 10,000. That is thousands of animals. And with what he is proposing, that means all animals, owners, and keepers will be identified, and even their cattle will be known that this person has this much head of cattle. And, Mr. Speaker, you know, if a kiosk owner today pays taxes, and somebody in Voi is keeping 10,000 head of cattle. Can you imagine that this guy is not paying any taxes? I want to urge our friend here, Senator Cherargei, in this bill, he must put something there that will curtail a livestock trader, a billionaire, not paying taxes, and somebody who is a kiosk owner pays taxes for the guy who is a billionaire. So what I think I will ask my able friend Senator to even think of, Mr. Speaker, is when we identify, this identification should be across Kenya. And we have a government in Voi, local government. And if a colonial governor can be able to identify Marsabit County has got how many head of cattle and who are the owners that time in 1950s. Now who is going to tell me today a digital Kenyan government cannot be able to identify and control animal keeping in a place like Voi? Mr. Speaker, on the issue of rustling, Mr. Speaker, you remember about 2 weeks ago, the CS Kindiki was before us, and the issue is what I raised, the issue I raised, and it was in regards to guns by KPR or NPR. Mr. Speaker, people in Nairobi today, Nanyuki, Meru, and other parts of Kenya don't need guns to protect the animals because we don't have raiders, poachers, even in our place. These people use guns, even they poach. So, Mr. Speaker, the issue of, that time when the CS was before us, I asked the CS, what is he going to do to make sure those KPR guns can be identifiable in terms of ballistic and in terms of
Honorable Senators, it is now 6:30 p.m. Time to adjourn the Senate. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until Tuesday, 7th November 2023 at 9 a.m. Senator Chute, when the House resumes, you will have a balance of 5 minutes for you to conclude on your contributions to this particular bill.